Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Umbu Team 7 protects Hogwarts Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. It was raining in Konoha. Huge fat droplets of water fell from the sky and made deep puddles on the ground. It was strange weather. Konoha was normally sunny and bright. This rain made it dreary and cold. However, it did not affect any of the Konoha ninja. There were still the usual guards patrolling the border, and Kotetsu and Izuma were still keeping watch at the village gates, although they were under a shelter that gave them no protection whatsoever from the pouring rain. A certain blonde Hokage sat behind her desk in her office, signing off paperwork. While attempting to sign off paperwork, she was making rather slow progress. In one hand she held a pen, and in the other, her usual cup of sake. Every now and then, she would stop and gaze out the window, bored and wishing for the rain to stop. It didn't help that the sound of water droplets hitting the roof made her want to fall asleep. As she sorted through the piles of towering paper, she spotted an envelope made of some kind of thick, heavy parchment. She raised an eyebrow. Konoha, or any of the ninja countries, for that matter, didn't own paper such as this. A seal of a badger, lion, snake and an eagle adorned the letter, and it was sealed with a sticky coating of red wax. There was only one place she could think of that had paper such as this one, along with its seal. Curiosity alerted, she carefully opened the letter and unfolded it. Greetings to the 5th Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves. I am Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. I am seeking your services to protect my school this year. A man by the name of Lord Voldemort is proving a danger to Hogwarts. I am sure that having ninja guard my school will help in the safety of my students. There is also a boy in particular I would like to have especially protected. His name is Harry Potter, and he is prophesied to bring down Lord Voldemort. About 10 to 15 ninja will be needed, as the school is a large place. I will pay any amount of money to hire them. Please reply, and if you accept, I will come and collect them in a week of you sending this letter back. Regards, Albus Dumbledore, Headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Tsunade stared at the letter for a few seconds, before the words any amount of money caught her eyes and registered in her brain. A slow smirk spread across her face. Grinning, she called out to Shizen. Shizen! Call in Naruto and his team right now! Tsunade yelled. A muffled hi was heard on the other side of the door, and she heard Shizen running down the hallway, her heels clip-clopping. Tsunade didn't stop smiling as she swiveled around in her chair, all other paperwork forgotten. It seemed as though the rainy day wasn't so bad after all. 10 minutes later. Any Tsunade-bachan, what's going on? A teen in a fox mask grumbled. Naruto may have aged into a 17-year-old ANBU agent, but that didn't mean he had lost his disrespectful way of speaking to the Hokage. A vein appeared on Tsunade's forehead as she tried to stop her hand from pummeling his ass all the way to Suna and back. It seemed as though Tsunade had gotten better self-control over the years. Baka! We have to wait for the others, Sakura said, rolling her eyes behind her slug mask as well as giving him a hard whack upside the head. The third person in the room stood silent and unmoving behind his raven mask as he tried to tune out his teammate's argument. Uchiha Sasuke had returned from his quest for revenge. Don't ask me how, I don't know. Let's just say Naruto brought him back and now everything's fine, any? I really don't want to explore the details, but like always, he was stoic and didn't often take sides in Naruto's and Sakura's fights, although he did still like to argue with Naruto, only for the satisfaction of watching Naruto get pissed in the first 5 words of the exchange. Who else is coming? Slug asked, finally deciding to end her squabbling. Let's see, Niji, Tenten, Kiba, Shikamaru, Hinata, Ino and I think Gaara, Tsunade stated, listing off the names. Nani? Gaara? But what about Shino, Choji, Bushy Brows, Sai, Temari and Kankuro? Fox shouted. Raccoon, because I think he will be best for the mission, and Shino, Choji, Sai and Lee are on another ANBU mission. They may join you later, Tsunade explained. She didn't bother expressing the fact that she only invited Gaara to take part in the mission because she had a feeling that he wanted to get away from his paperwork. Gaara used to be a member of the Konoha Sunigeki ANBU Alliance squad, with Temari and Kankuro still in it. Yo, sorry we're late, came a sudden voice to Fox's right. He blinked and turned around to see an ANBU agent clad in a dog mask with a large white dog next to him. A blue-haired girl in a cat mask stood beside the dog and murmured a soft apology on their lateness. A second later, 2 poofs were heard and an ANBU with long, chocolate-colored hair tied up in a loose, low ponytail appeared in an eagle mask alongside a brown-haired girl with 2 buns wearing a dragon mask. You smell like wet dog, Fox pointed out to the new arrivals. Dog sighed. Maybe because Akamaru is a dog and we've just been out in the rain, Dog said. A third poof was heard and the all-time lazy genius appeared in a stag mask. The door opened quietly and a blonde girl entered wearing a swan mask stepped in. Tsunade frowned. Now we just have to wait for the Kazekage, Tsunade sighed. He should be here in a few moments. The ninja had developed a new transportation jutsu that enabled the user to teleport wherever they wanted, with the limit being around 1,000 kilometers. Quite handy, although it drained a large amount of chakra and was used only if needed. It was called the 1,000-kilometer jutsu. I'm already here, a cool voice stated. Gaara appeared in front of the Hokage's desk wearing a mask of raccoon and carrying his usual sand gourd. Good day to you, Kazekage, Tsunade said. Raccoon repeated the greeting. Hey Raccoon! Naruto grinned. Raccoon turned towards him and acknowledged the welcome with a nod. Where's Kankuro and Temari? Kankuro is staying behind as acting Kazekage with Temari. If it's alright after the first few months, they might join us in the mission, Raccoon said quietly. The only reason I am participating this time is because as the leader of Sunagakure, it is my duty to oversee any possible threats to the ninja world and in particular, Suna. This Lord Voldemort seems to be a danger. He didn't mention the fact that it also got him away from his paperwork. Good. Now everyone is here. I can start the mission debriefing, Tsunade said. Now you all don't know this, apart from Raccoon, being the Kazekage and all, but there are other dimensions other than ours. She paused to let this information sink in. Even with the masks, she could tell that their mouths were open. Other dimensions? Dragon repeated. You mean the place we are going to for our mission is in another dimension? Raccoon said. His jade-green eyes then proceeded to narrow. Are you talking about the magical dimension? Tsunade nodded, while the other Inubi looked on, clueless. Tsunade then went on about other dimensions. I'm just gonna skip all this, and then to the reason of the mission. So, basically, all you have to do is protect Hogwarts from Lord Voldemort. You could compare him to Orochimaru but one in the magical world. As well as protecting Hogwarts, you must guard the student Harry Potter for reasons I can't be bothered to tell you about. Dumbledore-san can explain it to you. This mission will last around about 10 to 12 months, maybe more, maybe less. The conditions surrounding this will be that you all are to remain in full ANBU gear, including masks, armor, and weapons. If, after the first 2 months or so, you think it is safe to reveal your faces, do so, but only if you are sure. If not, remain masked. Dumbledore-san will explain to you the rules of the castle. Is that clear? After receiving nods from her agents, she sighed and leaned back. Raccoon stepped forward and whispered something quietly in her ear, so quiet that even the rest of the NBU, with their highly trained senses, could not catch. Tsunade nodded. Alright, Fox will be captain for this mission, Raccoon second in command and Raven third in command, Tsunade finished. She handed each of them scrolls. This is important information on the mission. I will also expect you to send a mission report to me on the first day of every month by Owl, Fox, which Dumbledore-san will help with as I don't know how to make birds travel from one dimension to another. You all have 1 week to prepare. Bring as many weapons as you can and all your ANBU gear and say goodbye to everyone, etc. Clear? The ANBU nodded. Dismissed. 1 week later. The ninja had gathered silently in the Hokage's office. The rain had finally cleared up over the course of the week, and now the usual sunlight filtered in between the occasional puffs of clouds. Without warning, an old man appeared in front of them. The ninja jumped and tensed up, kunai instantly appearing in their hands. Tsunade waved at them to put them away. He's our client, Tsunade said. Fox turned to the old man, opening his mouth to speak but then finding himself unable to because he had finally registered the eccentric clothing that the man wore. To put it simply, he was wearing a purple dress. Ha 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 ha, Fox crowed. He doubled over, holding his stomach with tears leaking out of his eyes. You're wearing a dress! Ha ha! Baka! Sakura yelled and hit his head. That shut him up instantly. She bowed to the old man. Gomenasai. My friend is a little stupid sometimes, she said nervously. The man's eyes twinkled and he smiled at her. No matter, my dear, the old man laughed. He turned to the rest of the group. Good day to you all, the man said. My name is Albus Dumbledore, or, as you people say it, Dumbledore Albus. Recovering from her annoyance at Naruto, Tsunade welcomed him. Greetings, Dumbledore-san, Tsunade smiled. It had been a while. Tsunade-chan, Dumbledore beamed. It had indeed been a very long time. Before the two adults could get into an all-out conversation, Swan cleared her throat. Yes, of course, the mission, Tsunade said. Well, Dumbledore-san will take you to Hogwarts by portkey. If you read your mission scrolls, you would know what they are. After that, you know what to do. Please put a finger to this, Dumbledore said, holding out a lamp. It will activate in about 1 minute. Curious, the ninja stuck a finger on the lamp while feeling extremely idiotic. Finally, the portkey began to glow. Good luck and don't die, Tsunade grinned before they were swept away. From now on. Italics, Japanese italics, also when something is being emphasized. Italics, when someone is thinking normal. English, I trust you guys to tell the difference between all the italics. The ninja slammed onto the ground rather ungracefully for people of their rank. The only ones who managed to stay upright were Raven, Eagle and Raccoon, although the said three were swaying slightly. Muffled shouts and complaints came from the undignified heap on the ground, and Dumbledore chuckled as he watched them try to untangle themselves. Swan, you pig! You're on my leg! Arg! Akamaru! Get your furry butt off my stomach! This is troublesome. Fox, your hand is on my face. I can't breathe. You're on my chest. Damn it, Slug. Your elbow is jabbing my ribs. Your scrolls are squishing my arm, Dragon. This is really troublesome. Raven sighed. This is going to take a while, Eagle murmured. Raccoon twitched in annoyance as he began to use his sand and unceremoniously lifted all the members from the pile and dumped them on the ground a few meters away from each other. Will you stop acting stupid? Raven finally hissed. Fox, you're supposed to be captain, and yet you insist on acting like a child. Even an academy student would know better. Fox winced at Raven's choice of words. Always so blunt, Fox mumbled. Everyone! Look! Dragon cried excitedly. The other ninja followed her gaze and found themselves staring at a huge castle, a dark silhouette against the night sky. Dumbledore smiled. Welcome, he said, to Hogwarts. We're in a place called Hogsmeade, Dumbledore said as he led the masked shinobi through the empty streets. Even he, a wizard who had seen more than any normal man could wish for in his lifetime, still found it uncanny that the ninja could walk with absolute silence. Although it was obvious that he was surrounded by the shinobi, all he heard was the sound of his own robes rustling. It was certainly unnerving. They were like ghosts. The ninja slipped in and out of the shadows as they walked, seemingly part of the darkness. Only their paper-white masks portraying its snarling animals and silver armor stood out in the black. Dumbledore guessed that the shinobi had been trained to be one with the shadows, and continued to do so without consciously realizing it. It was a habit drilled into them from their harsh training. The ninja and Dumbledore reached Hogwarts and entered its grounds. They went into the entrance hall and pushed open the heavy oak doors that lead to the Great Hall. Greeting them inside were a row of teachers, all with the same, identical disapproving looks on their faces. Are they the staff? Dog whispered. Obviously, Stag yawned. Dog shot him a glare which he pretended not to notice. These are the shinobi I took the liberty of hiring, Dumbledore said after greeting the teachers. The ninja stared at him, not understanding the words that came out of his mouth. Nanny? What did the old man say? Fox asked. I believe he is talking in a language called English, Cat whispered. Hinata, or in this case, Cat, had long ago lost her stutter, although when she was under pressure it returned, and she seemed to be a little more outgoing, but she was still quiet and shy. She no longer fainted around Naruto either, but still retained her blush. Gomenasai. I will cast a spell on you regarding the language barrier, Dumbledore said. He waved his wand over the group. This is so cool! Swan exclaimed. You can freely switch between Japanese and English, Dumbledore said. So, with that little problem solved, may I introduce you to the teachers of Hogwarts? He then went on and named the staff, too many for me to remember, but he definitely introduces all of them. Identify yourselves. A man with black hair and a hooked nose stepped forward. The shinobi remembered his name to be Severus Snape. Fox glared at him, but spoke. Fox. Captain of this mission. Raccoon. Second in command. The teachers raised their eyebrows at the gourd he was carrying. Raven. Third in command. Stag. Advisor and strategist. Eagle. Scout. Cat. Scout. Dog. Scout. And this is my partner Akamaru. He is also a scout. Dragon. Weapons mistress. Slug. Medic. Swan. Medic. Please reveal your faces, a teacher by the name of McGonagall said. She seemed to be one of the most disapproving of the teachers. Her lips were pressed into a thin line. Sorry. No can do. Our faces remain masked until Fox says so, Raven stated icily, not sounding very sorry at all. Dumbledore shooed the teachers away and closed the doors behind them. After making sure they had all gone, Dumbledore faced them again. Glancing at their captain, they received a nod. The ninja lowered the mask from their face, and then proceeded to say their real names. Delighted to meet you all, Dumbledore said cheerfully after they had introduced themselves. He hid his surprise at how young they were behind a bright smile, but he knew that Hogwarts would be in safe hands. The ninja spent the week before term started lounging around in Hogwarts Castle. After getting over their shock at seeing pictures move, the ninja had then proceeded to memorize the rough layout of the castle, particularly the 4 house common rooms. Dumbledore had given them the passwords, and they entered and went as they pleased. On their first day, Dumbledore had shown Fox their quarters for the year, and that night, he presented them to his friends. Guys, follow me, Fox called. The shinobi raised their eyebrows but followed their captain. He led them through corridors and hallways, finally halting to a stop in front of a blank wall. Fox, that's a wall, Swan said blankly. Yeah, just wait, Fox said. The password is yeah, got it. Fox glared at the wall and said clearly, Gawkage. Immediately, a door appeared on the wall, and Fox grasped the ornate handle and opened it. The shinobi followed their captain inside, and they were greeting with a room that looked a little like the Gryffindor common room, except it wasn't all red, and I like to call it the ninja common room. There were long banners that hung from the ceiling, showing the symbols of the 5 great shinobi nations. On a wall, there was a map of the ninja continent, and on the opposite wall, a map of Hogwarts Castle. Leading from the ninja common room was a kitchen which had ramen, to Fox's delight, and complete with all the kitchen necessities. Upstairs there were 2 bathrooms, one for girls and one for boys, and 2 dorms, all with 6 beds in each. In the bathroom, there is a laundry basket. Dumbledore said that if you put your dirty clothes and armor in there, close the lid, and then open it again, the clothes will be clean again, Fox explained. I like this place, Dragon said after inspecting everything. Nice, isn't it? Fox said happily. The ninja made small sounds of agreement. Okay, back to business, Raven said coldly. Fox made a face under his mask. Always a spoilsport, he muttered. All right, go back to whatever the hell you were doing before this. The ninja scattered, leaving Fox alone. Over the next few days, the shinobi had most of the castle memorized, and then started doing their own little things. Stag spent most of his time sleeping while Eagle meditated with Dragon. Swan, Cat and Slug liked to go and spar in the Quidditch pitch, and Raven was always found at the edge of the Forbidden Forest, trying to improve his techniques and kunai throwing. Dog and Akamaru spent their time training in the Forbidden Forest and could be out hours at an end. Raccoon liked to walk around the castle upside down, don't ask me why. Fox spent his time exploring the castle and attempting to talk to the teachers. Most of the time, though, he only got one-word answers. In the shinobi quarters, the ninja were free to remove their masks, don normal clothes, and call each other by their names. They had made dinner in their quarters for 5 days now, although they were free to go down to the Great Hall and eat. Naruto, being Naruto, had managed to piss of all 5 boys that shared the dorm with him. It was the 6th morning of their stay at Hogwarts, and Naruto had, strangely enough, woken up first and went down to the common room. Later, everyone had woken up, and Gaara, Sasuke, Kiba, Shikamaru and Niji walked down the stairs, all looking as though they wanted to strangle the blonde. Ino, Hinata, Sakura and Tenten all raised their eyebrows at the boy's strange behavior. Naruto, Niji growled. The said boy jumped to his feet and grinned when he saw his fellow ninja and completely not grasping the mood of the situation, being the obnoxious and dense guy that he was when reading moods. What's up with you guys? Did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed this morning? Naruto joked cheerfully. The sound of 5 jaws being clenched was heard throughout the room. As a matter of fact, I did, Gaara snapped. Because someone I know was sleepwalking last night and decided to use a few of his techniques on me while I was asleep. Huh? Who? Asked Naruto, clueless as ever. He means you, Kiba hissed. Naruto, do you know you sleepwalk, sleep talk and sleep fight? No, Naruto said. I do that? Yeah, and last night was especially bad, Sasuke grumbled. You've been doing it every night since we got here, but normally you just kinda moan and punch your pillows, but last night was just terrible. You made about 5 shadow clones and decided to make them hang me upside down, Gaara snarled. A few of you tried to Rasengan me out of my bed, Kiba said. Thank God Akamaru woke me up. And you yourself went over to me and attempted to punch my lights out, Sasuke said, glaring at the blonde. One of your shadow clones tried to poke me in the eye, Shikamaru reported. But the lazy bastard kicked him in the balls and the clone disappeared and then he went back to sleep, Niji said. And another one of your clones woke me up and used the sexy no jutsu on me, but then I gentle-fisted it. And you were yelling at the top of your voice about how you were going to challenge us to a duel and beat us, all 5 boys said simultaneously. All in all, we didn't get much sleep, Sasuke said. We were all trying to protect ourselves from you. Do you know how long it takes me to get to sleep? Gaara groaned. It takes me ages, and I finally dropped off only to be woken up by some stupid blonde by the name of Naruto. I have no idea how the girls slept through that racket, Kiba said, gritting his teeth. Well, why didn't you wake me up? Naruto protested. Naruto, you are a really deep sleeper, Gaara sighed. Naruto was silent for a few seconds. So that's why all of you guys have these shadows under your eyes, Naruto finally said, and that's why the dorm looked a mess when I woke up. The ninja sighed and face-palmed. Looks like you boys have got it rough, Tenten laughed. You should strap him to his bed, Sakura suggested. That's a good idea, Ino giggled. Anyone want breakfast? Hinata asked, completely changing the subject. They all smiled, most of them, and headed to the kitchen. Hi Gaara, Naruto said. He stood in the doorway of the dorm and watched as the Kazekage lazed around on his bed and made little figures out of sand with his raccoon mask sitting on the desk. Naruto entered. Naruto, Gaara said. Naruto bounced over and jumped on his bed. Watcha doing? Naruto peered at the little sand figurines which had become as hard as steel. Trying to find out how much I can solidify and strengthen my sand, Gaara said. He made another figure, Shikaku. That really does look like him, Naruto said, picking it up. Gaara gave him a half-smile. You know, at first I felt lonely without Shikaku talking to me in my head, Gaara said, referring to the time when he had been rescued from the Akatsuki. He had died while losing Shikaku, but then Chio had brought him back to life. But then I realized that I felt something stronger. What was that? Naruto asked. Gaara smiled truly now. I felt free. Naruto grinned, but said nothing. The two sat in companionable silence for a while, until they felt the chakra of Kiba and Akamaru outside the door. Dinner was all Akamaru said. Naruto jumped up, but then instantly sat back down again when he remembered that all the ramen cups were finished and that he would have to eat something else. Gaara sighed, guessing what was on his mind. Let's just go, Naruto, Gaara said. Besides, it's your fault for eating all of them. We'll ask Dumbledore-san where we can get some more. Naruto pouted. I want ramen, Naruto whined, sounding a lot like a child. Gaara stared at him for a few moments, and then smirked. The ninja downstairs heard a few screams and shouts coming from the bedrooms, and they paused in their activities to see what was going on. Okay. I'm coming. Please don't do this me. I'm sorry. I'll come. Don't kill me, just let me go. Sakura popped her head out of the kitchen. Why does that sound like Naruto? She groaned. Ino smirked. Maybe because it is, Hinata mumbled. Hinata, it's called sarcasm, Ino laughed, lightly punching the blue-haired girl's shoulder. Nah. Ru. Too. Sakura growled. Hinata raised an eyebrow but continued making dinner. They are going to wreck this place soon, Ino said. Hinata laughed in agreement. The two ninjas' eyes followed their teammate as she darted up the stairs. You stupid baka. Quit making such a huge ruckus while everyone is trying to work. Sakura's voice was heard by everyone in the quarters. Ino and Hinata giggled. Back up in the dorm, Sakura was fuming at Naruto, who looked as though doomsday was approaching. Sakura, let him go, Gaara said. Besides, it's not as if we're all doing important stuff. We're just lazing around. Sakura glared at him before dumping Naruto on the ground, leaving him bruised and bloodied. Gaara, please explain to me why the hell Naruto was dangling from the ceiling while you were making your sand look like a ghost, Sakura said through clenched teeth. Gaara shrugged. He wouldn't shut up, Gaara said tonelessly. About ramen? Hey! You silly tanuki! Would you stop saying everything in that bored voice of yours? At least try to sound more enthusiastic or something, Naruto said, rubbing his head. You're gonna start sounding like Sasuke team. Gaara didn't turn to look at him, or even acknowledge that he had spoken, but everyone heard the thud Naruto made when he hit the ground face first, pushed to the floor by a fist of sand. I'm going down to eat, Raccoon said. Shikamaru was sitting in the common room staring out the window to the clouds and was amused to hear everything that went on upstairs, and even more amused when Gaara came down the stairs acting as though nothing had happened, followed by Naruto who was limping and groaning, with Sakura bring up the rear, cracking her knuckles and quietly threatening the blonde. Then again, they always acted like this. Geez, what's with the noise? Kiba moaned as he slumped down on one of the chairs. Akamaru plopped down next to him. You guys know that you were splitting my ears? Eheed. Sorry Kiba, Sakura said sheepishly. Some idiots, she shot Gaara and Naruto a glare, were being stupid and I had to go and straighten them out. Kiba glanced at Naruto, who turned away with a huff, and Gaara, who met his gaze head-on. Back in the girls' dorm, Niji and Tenten were relaxing and doing absolutely nothing, despite the fact that Niji, by an unspoken rule, should not be in the girls' dorm, strictly speaking. Seems like Naruto and Sakura have shut up, Niji said. He and Tenten had abandoned their masks, tossing them into a corner. Tenten grinned. They really are loud, she commented. A silence fell between them as they simply enjoyed being in each other's company. Tenten read a book about different types of weapons over the ages while Niji was looking at the mission scroll. Do you think we should go down to eat? Tenten asked. Niji nodded. He got up first, and without thinking, he stretched out his hand towards her. Inside his mind, Niji was screaming, "Oh my god, what the hell am I doing?" But it was too late to draw his hand back now without the gesture looking awkward. Tenten glanced at him, surprised, but then she smiled and took it. After a second, he pulled her to her feet. The contact was brief, and he let go after that, but somewhere in the back of his mind, Niji wanted it to last longer. Baka. Stop thinking these weird thoughts, Niji scolded himself. I'm on a mission. I have to focus on the mission, I can't get sidetracked. Little did he know that Tenten, who was walking by his side, was thinking the exact same thing. There is something I need to discuss with you, Dumbledore said as he sat down in his circular office. The 10 ninja gathered in front of his desk, their posture erect, and they made no noise. This year we are hosting the Triwizard Tournament, Dumbledore said. This is where 3 magical schools come and compete in 3 tasks, each with 1 student as their representative, called champions. The champions awarded the most points by the judges will receive the Triwizard Cup and 1,000 galleons. The ninja stood in silence as they tried to take in this vital piece of information which had come so quickly, and so suddenly. The Triwizard Tournament hasn't been held for over a century because there was such a high risk of death, Dumbledore said. Now we are reintroducing it, but there is an age limit. The students entering must be over 17 years old. What are the names of the schools competing? Fox asked. They are Bose Batons and Durmstrang, Dumbledore said, both foreign schools. The ANBU nodded their understanding. Alright, and you want us to also guard this tournament? Dragon clarified. Yes. I will, of course, pay extra, Dumbledore said. Hokage-sama will be pleased, Stag said. Dumbledore chuckled. Of course she will, he smiled. The sound of rain echoed throughout the castle. The shinobi huddled inside their quarters and jumped in surprise when the headmaster entered the common room. They hadn't felt his presence. The ninja acknowledged him with various greetings, including an overly enthusiastic one from their captain, nods, smiles, and normal hellos. Today you will be starting your guarding mission, Dumbledore said. Harry will be on the Hogwarts Express and you are to protect him for the whole of the train journey, as well as guard the rest of the train. Naruto nodded. We know, he said. Dumbledore inclined his head and left the shinobi quarters, and Naruto turned back to his crew. Sasuke team will be guarding first, Naruto said, grinning. The rest can protect everyone else. What? Why am I the one stuck with babysitting? Sasuke hissed. Because I'm captain and I say so, Naruto said cheekily. Now everyone get changed. Be more mature, Naruto, Shikamaru sighed. The shinobi left, and went back up to their dorms. There they pulled on their black clothes, bright silver armor, swords and finally, of course, their animal masks. They met Dumbledore outside the shinobi quarters and the headmaster led them outside onto the lawn where the ninja could clearly see the Whomping Willow. They got thoroughly soaked within seconds, but they ignored the rain, barely noticing it. You will be traveling there by port key, Dumbledore said, gesturing to a rather uninteresting-looking, but now soggy, tissue box. And the rest you know. Fox saluted the headmaster cheerily. Okay everyone, he said brightly, stick your fingers on. Raven rolled his eyes. Dobe, he scoffed. Fox stiffened. Team, Fox replied. Dobe. Team. Stupid. Idiot. Pain in the ass? Arrogant bastard. Shut up, Eagle said, losing his patience. Just put your finger on. Fox and Raven glared at the Hyuga prodigy before obliging, and a few seconds later they were whisked away. Later. Owl Raccoon grunted. He would have landed on his feet, but unluckily for him, he was buried under the bodies of 6 shinobi. Guys, get the hell off. Gomen ass-eye, Cat said, and she poked Dog to get off her legs. Everyone was on their feet again, and Fox helped Raccoon up. You'd think that you guys would have gotten used to traveling by Porky, Stag said. He had landed upright and was standing with Raven and Eagle. This is only the second time, Dragon protested. Hey, where have we landed? Swan asked suddenly. The ninja looked around and found that they were standing in the shadow of a wall, shielded by curious eyes. Well, this must be where the Hogwarts Express is, Slug said. Hey, what is that thing? Dog asked. Everyone looked to where the dog Neen was staring, and found themselves face to face with a giant metal object. It was belching out smoke, and the chaos surrounding it was deafening. Akamaru whined and wrinkled his nose. Apparently the smoke was making his nose sting. Actually, all the ninja felt like that. They didn't like this thing, which they had identified as a train. It was smelly, noisy, and unnatural. It stinks, Fox coughed. We should do a henge until we get to the castle, Slug suggested. The ninja nodded and henged into average-looking Hogwarts students wearing Muggle clothing. Has anyone seen Potter-san? Cat asked. Dumbledore had given them his picture before they had left, and the shinobi had managed to memorize his features. Is that him? Raccoon said, pointing at a black-haired boy with round glasses. Should be, Eagle said. The ninja saw a large family of redheads surrounding their target. Harry Potter and his friends went aboard the train and the shinobi followed. About a few seconds later, the train started to move. I don't like this, Swan said. The guards were currently standing in the corridor of the train and were trying to get used to the vehicle's motions. They quickly found out that trains made a lot of noise, from the sound of the wheels on the tracks to the train's whistle to the rattling of the carriages. Raven, move it, Fox ordered, referring to their charge. Raven sighed before moving off to Harry Potter's carriage. Harry Potter hadn't found a carriage yet, and so Raven body flickered past unsuspecting students to the only empty one left. He sat down and attempted to erase the annoyed look on his face. He had changed his hair to brown and spiky and made his skin more tanned. He was wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Nothing special. He waited, and a few minutes later, his charge opened the door and entered, followed by his 2 friends. Harry Potter didn't even notice the stoic boy until Raven started to exude an air of pure coldness. Oh, said Hermione in surprise. I'm sorry, we didn't see you. May we sit here? Raven nodded. They sat, and the atmosphere was a mix of freezing silence and awkwardness. My name is Hermione Granger. This is Ron Weasley and that's Harry Potter, Hermione said, attempting to break the silence in the carriage. Raven almost raised an eyebrow. Were all wizards this friendly? Raven didn't attempt to answer the girl and instead shot her a glare that said I really don't give a shit. Hermione went pink and Raven ignored the threatening look he received from Ron. Dude must be a Slytherin, he heard Ron mutter to Harry, not aware that Raven could hear everything that he had said. Harry nodded and began talking with his friends to steer the conversation away from the Slytherin boy. They chatting about stuff Raven didn't give a damn about, including hiding schools from muggles and talking about some sport called Quidditch. A few boys dropped in, all evidently friends of Harry's. Although Raven got strange looks from the newcomers, nobody said a thing. While Raven didn't join in on the conversation, he heard a lot just by listening. He found out that the round-faced boy was named Longbottom Neville, another boy was called Finnegan Seamus, and the last was called Thomas Dean. Before long, however, another student came along, and Raven knew instantly that they were trouble. Well, not really trouble, but they would become an annoyance. He had blonde hair that was almost white, a pointed chin, and on his face, an arrogant sneer. Standing behind him were what looked like 2 obese baboons. Don't remember asking you to join us, Malfoy said Harry coolly. So his name is Malfoy, Raven thought. The newcomer raised an eyebrow before something caught his eye in the carriage. Weasley, what is that? Said Malfoy, pointing to Pigwidgeon's cage. Raven didn't like the tiny owl. It was too noisy and acted like Naruto on a sugar high. A sleeve of Ron's dress robe was dangling from it, swaying with the motion of the train, the moldy lace cuff very obvious. Ron made to stuff the robes out of sight, But Malfoy was too quick for him. He seized the sleeve and pulled. "Look at this," said Malfoy in ecstasy, holding up Ron's dress robe and showing it to his two baboons. "Weasley, you weren't thinking of wearing these, were you? I mean, they were very fashionable in about 1890. "Eat dung, Malfoy," said Ron, the same color as the dress robe, as he snatched them back from Malfoy's grip. Malfoy howled with derisive laughter. The two baboons guffawed stupidly. "You better get out of here before I lose my temper. I'm getting sick of your damn annoying voice and the two baboons behind you who look as though they don't know the difference between 'I'm gonna kill you soon' and 'you're going to die,'" Raven finally hissed out between clenched teeth. The Hogwarts students jumped. They had totally forgotten about him. "And who might you be?" Malfoy sneered. "Someone who's going to make your life a living hell if you don't get your ugly face out of this compartment," Raven said coldly. "And take your baboons with you." "I'll tell my father about this," Malfoy said, affronted. "Go on, tell him, I really don't give a damn." "Just go," Raven said. Malfoy disappeared along with his two cronies. Raven had managed to get a better look at the two thugs behind him, and was surprised to see that they weren't baboons, just two people who looked as though they had about the same brain capacity as an ant. Harry wasn't sure whether he wanted to laugh or not. He seriously wanted to laugh after seeing the Slytherin boy deal with his archenemy, but then, the Slytherin boy in person looked as though he wanted to rip someone's head off. "Picking fights already?" asked a playful voice by the door. Harry glanced up again and saw a girl with long red hair and emerald green eyes, Slug. Unknown to the wizards, Raven was trying to get Slug to switch places with him. He looked at her silently and said clearly with his onyx eyes, "If you do not switch places with me, I am going to lose my mind." Slug sighed inwardly. She jerked her head to the door and Raven stood up, relieved to be free. "Get Dog to swap with me," Raven said outside. "I don't want to stay in the same compartment as the brats, it's suffocating." "Stop being such a drama king," Slug said. Raven met the other guards up on the roof of the train, all using their chakra to stick to the top. "How was the babysitting?" Fox asked. Raven glared at him and dropped his henge, turning back into his ANBU gear and mask. "Boring," he said, "although there are some boys that may be an eyesore to us." Fox cocked his head. "Oh?" he asked, grinning beneath his mask. "Do say?" "Some gawky called Malfoy and his two thugs. I think their names were Crab and Goyle," Raven said. "Why are we all out here anyway?" Eagle grumbled. "It's so wet." The rain still hadn't eased up, and the shinobi were all dripping. Good point," Stag said. "Can I go back inside?" "I don't like water," Raccoon said. His sand armor had peeled off. "Fine, everyone, back into the train," Fox sighed. "Well, at least we have Cat and the brick wall to tell us if anything is wrong." "Who are you calling a brick wall?" Eagle asked. The guards dropped into the corridor, managing to stay out of sight of the students. "We still have another hour or so," Dragon said. "We can use that time to get dry," Swan said. She squeezed water out of her long blonde hair. All the ninja had dropped their henge, not bothering to keep it up. The shinobi slipped into a compartment reserved just for them at the front of the train, leaving Cat to guard the train and Dog lurking just outside Harry Potter's compartment to keep an eye on him. Stag, and surprisingly Fox, sat and played shogi. Fox, unsurprisingly, was losing badly. Slug was reading a scroll on medicinal jutsu and Swan was studying another one. Raven was staring at the wall opposite him, and Eagle was staring out the window with Dragon reading a book on weapons beside him. Raccoon was reading the mission scroll, his eyes jade green eyes running up and down, making sure nothing had been missed. The sound of pounding rain eventually dulled Stag to sleep, and Fox was trying to kill time by going out to chat to Cat every once in a while, seeing as the people in his compartment were either busy or did not want to talk at all. As the students did not normally venture out of their compartments, the shinobi didn't have to henge or anything. Lucky them. Half an hour later, Dog switched places with Swan, and Cat switched places with the brick wall, meaning Eagle. At around 10 minutes until their destination, the ninja heard the flurry of robes and the sounds of people getting changed. They sighed. Finally, they could get off the train. Although the shinobi had adjusted to it over the past hour or so, they still didn't like something that could move independent of its will. The train finally slowed down and stopped at Hogsmeade Station. The doors opened and students scrambled out into the pouring rain, which felt like ice buckets of water was being poured repeatedly onto their heads. Harry noticed 10 slight shadows in the rain, but they sped to the castle so quickly that he dismissed it as a trick of the light. "Hi, Hagrid," Harry yelled, seeing a gigantic silhouette at the far end of the platform. "All right, Harry," Hagrid bellowed back, waving. "See ya at the feast if we don't drown." First years traditionally reached Hogwarts Castle by sailing across the lake with Hagrid. "Oh, I wouldn't fancy crossing the lake in this weather," Hermione said fervently, shivering. The trio inched across the platform slowly until they reached around 100 horseless carriages. Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Neville reached one gratefully and climbed into it, shutting the door with a snap. A few moments later, there was a great lurch, and the carriages set off by themselves, rumbling and splashing its way up to Hogwarts. Through the gates, flanked with statues of winged boars, and up the sweeping drive the carriage trundled, swaying dangerously in what was fast becoming a gale. Leaning against the window, Harry could see Hogwarts coming nearer, its many lighted windows blurred and shimmering behind a thick curtain of rain. Lightning flashed across the sky as their carriage came to a halt before the great oak front doors, which stood at the top of a flight of stone steps. People who had occupied the carriages in front were already hurrying up the stone steps into the castle. Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Neville jumped down from their carriage and dashed up the steps too, looking up only when they were safely inside the cavernous, torchlit entrance hall, with its magnificent marble staircase. "Blimey," said Ron, shaking his head and sending water everywhere, "if that keeps up, the lake's going to overflow. I'm soak, argh." A large, red, water-filled balloon had dropped from out of the ceiling onto Ron's head, and exploded. Drenched and spluttering, Ron staggered sideways into Harry, just as a second water bomb dropped. Narrowly missing Hermione, it burst at Harry's feet, sending a wave of cold water over his trainers into his socks. People all around them shrieked and started pushing each other in their efforts to get out of the line of fire. Harry looked up, and saw, floating a few meters above them, Peeves the poltergeist, a little man in a bell-covered hat and orange bow tie, his wide, malicious face contorted with concentration as he took aim again. "Peeves!" yelled an angry voice. "Peeves, come down here at once!" Professor McGonagall, deputy headmistress and head of Gryffindor House, had come dashing out of the great hall. She skidded on the wet floor and grabbed Hermione around the neck to stop herself falling. "Ouch, sorry, Miss Granger." "That's all right, Professor," Hermione gasped, massaging her throat. "Peeves, get down here now!" barked Professor McGonagall, straightening her pointed hat and glaring upwards through her square-rimmed glasses. "Not doing nothing," cackled Peeves, lobbing a water bomb at several fifth-year girls, who screamed and dived into the great hall. "Already wet, aren't they? Little squirts. Whee!" And he aimed another bomb at a group of second years who had just arrived. "I shall call the headmaster," shouted Professor McGonagall. "I'm warning you, Peeves." Peeves stuck out his tongue, threw the last of his water bombs into the air, and zoomed off up the marble staircase, cackling insanely. "Well, move along then," said Professor McGonagall sharply to the bedraggled crowd. "Into the great hall, come on." Harry, Ron, and Hermione slipped and slid across the entrance hall and through the double doors on the right, Ron muttering furiously under his breath as he pushed his sopping hair off his face. The great hall looked its usual splendid self, decorated for the start of term feast. Golden plates and goblets gleamed by the light of hundreds and hundreds of candles, floating over the tables in midair. The 4 long house tables were packed with chattering students. At the top of the hall, the staff sat along one side of a 5th table, facing their pupils. It was much warmer in here. Harry, Ron, and Hermione walked past the Slytherins, the Ravenclaws, and the Hufflepuffs, and sat down with the rest of the Gryffindors at the far side of the hall, next to nearly headless Nick, the Gryffindor ghost. Pearly white and semi-transparent, Nick was dressed tonight in his usual doublet, with a particularly large ruff, which served the dual purpose of looking extra festive and ensuring that his head didn't wobble too much on his partially severed neck. "Harry," Hermione whispered, "why is there an extra table?" She pointed over to the head of the Gryffindor table, where a long table seating around 15 stood in the corner facing diagonally to the students, which ensured that all the table members could see the 4 house tables and the high table. Harry shrugged. "Extra guests?" he suggested. Hermione frowned, but said nothing about it for a while. Harry was greeted enthusiastically by Colin Creevey, who said that his younger brother was starting Hogwarts this year. "Oh, hurry up," Ron moaned beside Harry. "I could eat a hippogriff." The words were no sooner out of his mouth than the doors of the great hall opened, and silence fell. Professor McGonagall was leading a long line of first years up to the top of the hall. Professor McGonagall placed a 3-legged stool on the ground before the first years and, on top of it, an extremely old, dirty, patched wizard's hat. Far above, in the almost invisible rafters of the great hall, the 10 ninja crouched, hidden and silent. Stagg saw that Fox hadn't noticed the ghost yet, even though he had already been here for a week. Stagg mentally slapped his forehead, wondering how Fox could miss the pearly and transparent, almost, beings. He wondered how long it would take Fox to notice them. The doors of the great hall opened and Professor McGonagall entered carrying a 3-legged stool and a ragged hat, followed by a line of tiny first years who looked as though they had just gone swimming and had forgotten to dry off. Professor McGonagall placed the stool in front of the high table and put the hat on top of it. All the students and teachers stared at the hat, expectant. The shinobi stared at the ragged hat and raised invisible eyebrows as the hat opened its mouth and began to sing. Hat sings song. Did that hat just sing? Dog asked slowly. Akamaru was waiting in a corner of the Great Hall, and despite being a huge white dog, he blended into the wall behind him almost perfectly. Must be a jutsu. Strange Raccoon mused. Hey, Fox said, his eyes sparkling behind his mask. The others groaned at this. They didn't like the look in his eyes. When Dumbledore introduces us, we should do a flashy entrance. There was a silence as everyone stared at their captain. Why not? This answer came from the person least likely to respond and agree to it. Is Stag feeling all right? Swan whispered in concern. This isn't like him. Well, ninja aren't supposed to do flashy entrances, Eagle said. We're not supposed to draw attention to ourselves. I think it's a good idea, Cat said suddenly. Fox grinned at her. Now here's what we'll do. Wait, Fox, we didn't even agree, Dragon interrupted but was ignored. Giving up, she listened to what Fox wanted them to do. Stupid, Raven mumbled but agreed all the same after hearing Fox's master plan. Before we start out feast, Dumbledore said below them after the sorting had finished, I beg a few moments of your time. This perked the students' interest. I have taken the liberty of hiring Hogwarts a few guards. Do not worry, they won't be like the Dementors we had last year. But these guards are different, they are ninja. Ninja are either muggle nor wizard. They deal with wandless magic. The guards will stay here at Hogwarts until the end of the year. They have made up some rules that must be followed. I shall leave that up to them to announce, Dumbledore said. He then looked up to the ceiling of the Great Hall. Guards, please come down. There was silence for a few seconds, and then blurs began shooting around the Great Hall, making the candles stutter and flash. There was a gentle wind that ruffled Harry's hair, and swirls of sand and leaves danced around. They twisted around the front of the high table, and began to thicken, blocking their view of the teachers. Everything became slow and sluggish, a little like being underwater. When the leaves and sand cleared, a line of guards stood, facing them all. There were gasps from the students as they found themselves looking at the row of blank-faced guards, their eyes widening in shock. Harry admitted that he found them creepy. Very creepy. They wore masks with that portrayed snarling animals over their faces. They wore black clothes, and over that, silver armor covered their bodies. On their shoulders were strange swirly tattoos. The tattoos were on the left shoulder for the males and the right shoulder for the females. Strapped to their backs were short swords, with the exception of one. He had something in the shape of a giant peanut, as well as his sword which was strapped parallel to the peanut-shaped thing. The first stepped forward. Fox. Captain? He had spiky blonde hair, almost yellow. His bright blue eyes shone through the holes in the mask. Raccoon. Second in command. Raccoon was the one with the giant peanut. He had reddish-brown hair and pale green eyes looked out from underneath the holes in the mask. Raven. Third in command. Raven had dark blue hair that was almost black and onyx eyes. He exuded an aura of coldness. Stag. Advisor and strategist. Stag had black hair pulled up into a spiky ponytail, which resembled a pineapple. He was standing in a casual manner, indicating that he was lazy and didn't like to do much work. Eagle. Scout. Eagle had long chocolate brown hair which went down to about mid-back. Two shorter pieces of hair framed his face, and he had pearly white eyes. He was lean and muscled, and like Raven, had an atmosphere surrounding him that said, "Don't mess with me or you'll die." Cat. Scout. Judging from Cat's soft voice, she seemed to be shy. She had long blue hair, and fringe and bangs. She seemed to be the friendliest. She also had pearly white eyes. Dog. Scout. And this is my partner, Akamaru. Dog had brown hair, and on his mask were two red fang tattoos on its cheek. Akamaru was a massive white dog. Dog's eyes were slits instead of ovals, giving him a feral look. Dragon. Weapons mistress. Dragon had brown hair tied up in two Chinese-style buns on either side of her head. She had warm chocolate eyes. Slug. Medic. Slug, strangely, had pastel pink hair and emerald green eyes. She waved when she said hello, and the students assumed that, like Cat, she was very friendly. Swan. Medic. Swan had long blonde hair and a long fringe that covered part of her mask and sapphire blue eyes. Dumbledore began clapping, and the students followed suit, accompanied by large, excited chatter. Now listen carefully. The guards have all the same rights as teachers. That includes taking points from any student, prefect or not, and they are allowed to give you detentions. They are more used to killing than not killing, so I advise you not to get on their bad side. Although they have orders from me to not kill anyone here, they may break one of your arms by accident, Dumbledore said, smiling. Why was he looking so damn happy? You may find them sometimes in your classroom and your common rooms. Do not be alarmed at this, they are just doing their jobs, Dumbledore said. At times, they may even overrule teachers. The teachers raised eyebrows at this. Dumbledore smiled. And now, without further ado, let the feast begin. The empty dishes magically filled with food, and Ron and Harry began eating immediately. Hermione watched as the shinobi sat down at the extra table. That's where they're sitting, Hermione said. Wow. Magic can do a lot of things, Fox said appreciatively as he stared at the food that wasn't there before. He looked around, and then... Ramen! Fox burst out. Everyone looked up at the ninja table. The ninja face-palmed and looked down in embarrassment for their captain. One would think that as their captain, he would act more mature. But then again, this is Naruto we're talking about. Even hidden under his mask, he still hadn't lost his crazy personality. You are an ANBU. Act more mature, Swan said, rolling her eyes. I reckon 20 bowls, Stag said. Nah, he would probably eat around 25 or 30, Dog chuckled. What are you guys talking about? Slug asked. How many bowls of ramen Fox is going to eat, Eagle said. The guards lifted their masks slightly so that their mouths were showing, and a second later, all the food on their plates disappeared. There were gasps from the students who had been trying to catch their faces. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 23 bowls, Swan said. So who won the bet? Meh. It wasn't a bet, we were just estimating, Stag said. I can sense someone approaching the castle, Eagle said quietly, informing Fox. The captain perked up and darted over to Dumbledore's side and whispered the tidbit of information into his ear. Dumbledore nodded and waved him away. The food vanished and was replaced with dessert. I know who is, Dumbledore murmured. Fox nodded and returned to his seat, one eye trained at the doors of the Great Hall. A clap of thunder echoed through the hall, lightning illuminating the grounds outside briefly. Dumbledore got to his feet again, and instantly, all the chatter hushed until the only sound in the hall was the pounding of rain and the occasionally streaks of lightning. The food cleared, leaving the dishes clean and empty. So, said Dumbledore, smiling around at them all. Now that we are all fed and watered, I must once more ask for your attention, while I give out a few notices. Mr. Filch, the caretaker, has asked me to tell you that the list of objects forbidden inside the castle has this year been extended to include screaming yo-yos, fang frisbees and ever-bashing boomerangs. The full list comprises some 437 items, I believe, and can be viewed in Mr. Filch's office, if anybody would like to check it. The corners of Dumbledore's mouth twitched. He continued, as ever, I would like to remind you that all that the forest and the grounds is out of bounds to students, particularly this year because that will be the guards' training grounds. That, and the Quidditch pitch. Also, Hogsmeade Village is banned to all students below 3rd year. It is also my painful duty to inform you that the Inter-House Quidditch Cup will not take place this year. The ninja looked around as the students shifted about restlessly, talking to their neighbors and glancing up at the headmaster. Nah, any? What's Quidditch? Fox whispered to Raven. A sport they play on flying brooms, Raven shrugged. Team. That doesn't explain anything, Fox moaned. Dumbledore continued, this is due to an event that will be starting in October, and continuing throughout the school year, taking up much of the teacher's time and energy, but I am sure you will all enjoy it immensely. I have great pleasure in announcing that this year at Hogwarts. But at that moment, there was a deafening rumble of thunder, and the doors of the Great Hall banged opened. The shinobi narrowed their eyes at the newcomer, but deemed him no threat as Dumbledore did not seem surprised. However, they still had a job to do, and a second later, Raccoon held the man in a cocoon of sand, leaving only his head uncovered. Fox held a kunai to his throat and Raven another kunai to the back of his neck. How did they get there so fast? Harry whispered to his friends, glancing from the ninja table, which was at the front of the hall, to the stranger, who was at the back of the hall. Ron shook his head, his mouth open, staring at the guards and the newcomer. It can't be possible to move your body that fast, Hermione whispered. Everyone's head was swiveled to the stranger, and Dumbledore nodded to the guards, signaling them to let him go. The sand slid away from him, revealing the man to be leaning on a long staff, shrouded in a black traveling cloak. He lowered his hood, shook out a long man of grizzled, dark gray hair, then began to walk up towards the teacher's table, sparing no glance to the shinobi, who appeared back at the ninja table. A dull clunk echoed through the hall on his every other step. He reached the end of the top table, turned right and limped heavily towards Dumbledore. Another flash of lightning crossed the ceiling. Hermione gasped. The lightning had thrown the man's face into sharp relief, and it was a face unlike any Harry had ever seen. It looked as though it had been carved out of weathered wood by someone who had only the vaguest idea of what human faces were supposed to look like, and was none too skilled with the chisel. Every inch of his skin seemed to be scarred. The mouth looked like a diagonal gash, and a large chunk of nose was missing. But it was the man's eyes that made him frightening. One of them was small, dark, and beady. The other was large, round as a coin, and a vivid electric blue. The blue eye was moving ceaselessly, without blinking, and was rolling up, down, and from side to side, quite independently of the normal eye, and then it rolled right over, pointing into the back of the man's head, so that all they could see was whiteness. The stranger reached Dumbledore. He stretched out a hand that was as badly scarred as his face, and Dumbledore shook it. "Nice guards you've got here," the ninja heard the man mumble. Dumbledore nodded, and gestured the man to the empty seat on his right-hand side. The stranger sat down, shook his man of dark gray hair out of his face, pulled a plate of sausages towards him, raised it to what was left of his nose and sniffed it. He then took a small knife out of his pocket, speared a sausage to the end of it, and began to eat. His normal eye was fixed upon the sausages, but the blue eye was still darting restlessly around in its socket, taking in the hall and the students, though it hovered for a second longer upon the ninja table. "May I introduce our new defense against the dark arts teacher," said Dumbledore brightly, into the silence. "Professor Moody." It was usual for new staff members to be greeted with applause, but none of the staff or students clapped except Dumbledore and Hagrid. Both put their hands together and applauded, but the sound echoed dismally into the silence, and they stopped fairly quickly. Everyone else seemed too transfixed by Moody's bizarre appearance to do more than stare at him. Moody seemed totally indifferent to his less than warm welcome. Ignoring the jug of pumpkin juice in front of him, he reached again into his traveling cloak, pulled out a hip flask and took a long draught from it. As he lifted his arm to drink, his cloak was pulled a few inches from the ground, and everyone saw, below the table, several inches of carved wooden leg, ending in a clawed foot. Dumbledore cleared his throat again. "As I was saying," he said, smiling at the sea of students before him, all of whom were still gazing transfixed at Mad-Eye Moody, "we are to have the honor of hosting a very exciting event over the coming months, an event which has not been held for over a century. It is my very great pleasure to inform you that the Triwizard Tournament will be taking place at Hogwarts this year." "You're joking," said Fred Weasley loudly. The ninja raised unseen eyebrows at the twin who they recognized as the company that had surrounded Harry Potter at the train station. The tension that had filled the hall ever since Moody's arrival suddenly broke. Nearly everyone laughed, and Dumbledore chuckled appreciatively. "I am not joking, Mr. Weasley," he said, "though, now you mention it, I did hear an excellent one over the summer about a troll, a hag and a leprechaun who all go into a bar." Professor McGonagall cleared her throat loudly. But maybe this is not the time." "No," said Dumbledore. "Where was I? Ah yes, the Triwizard Tournament. Well, some of you will not know what this tournament involves, so I hope those who do know will forgive me for giving a short explanation, and allow their attention to wander freely. The Triwizard Tournament was first established some 700 years ago, as a friendly competition between the three largest European schools of wizardry, Hogwarts, Beauxbatons and Durmstrang. A champion was selected to represent each school, and the three champions competed in 3 magical tasks. The schools took it in turns to host the tournament once every 5 years, and it was generally agreed to be a most excellent way of establishing ties between young witches and wizards of different nationalities, until, that is, the death toll mounted so high that the tournament was discontinued. There have been several attempted over the centuries to reinstate the tournament, Dumbledore continued, none of which have been very successful. However, our own departments of international magical cooperation and magical games and sports have decided the time is right for another attempt. We have worked hard over the summer to ensure that, this time, no champion will find himself or herself in mortal danger. The heads of Beauxbatons and Durmstrang will be arriving with their short-listed contender in October, and the selection of the 3 champions will take place at Halloween. An impartial judge will decide which students are most worthy to compete for the Triwizard Cup, the glory of their school, and 1,000 galleons personal prize money. "Eager though I know all of you will be to bring the Triwizard Cup to Hogwarts," he said, "the heads of the participating schools, along with the Ministry of Magic, have agreed to impose an age restriction on contenders this year. Only students who are of age, that is to say, 17 years or older, will be allowed to put forward their names for consideration. This, Dumbledore raised his voice slightly, for several people had made noises of outrage at these words, and the Weasley twins were suddenly looking furious, is a measure we feel is necessary, given that the tournament tasks will still be difficult and dangerous, whatever precautions we take, and it is highly unlikely that students below 6th and 7th year will be able to cope with them. I will personally be ensuring that no underage student hoodwinks our impartial judge into making them Hogwarts champion. His light blue eyes twinkled as they flickered over to Fred and George's mutinous faces. I therefore beg you not to waste your time submitting yourself if you are under 17. The delegations from Beau's Batons and Durmstrang as Dumbledore droned on, the ninja tuned out and turned to each other. Okay, we have our quarters, but someone will have to stay in the Gryffindor common room to take care of Potter's, and we may sometimes leave one of us in Ravenclaw's, Hufflepuff's and Slytherin's common rooms just to see how they are going, Fox said. And we need another 2 to patrol the castle, who will switch over with another pair at 1 o'clock in the morning. Me and Eagle can take the first patrol, Dragon chirped. Eagle nodded slightly. Okay, and on second watch, we can have Slug and Swan. I'll guard Potter's tonight, Fox said. I'm going to assign some of you to the houses. Stag is assigned with Ravenclaw. Cat can go with Hufflepuff, Raven with Slytherin, and I'll stay with Gryffindor. Tonight, we all have to explain the rules to them. To make sure the students of Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, and Slytherin don't sneak out during the night, just put some traps in front of their common rooms. There was a great deal of scraping and banging as all the students got to their feet, and swarmed towards the double doors into the entrance hall. Hold it right there! Dog barked, his voice managing to raise above all the noise. The students quieted down and stopped, staring at Dog, who was bounding forward on Akamaru. We have to take you to your common rooms and explain the rules. Nodding at Fox, Cat, Stag, and Raven, he let them take over. Please follow me, Cat said. The Hufflepuffs followed her obediently as she led them to where she knew their common room was. They went in quietly, and as Cat led them along, she found them to be very polite and courteous. Stag sighed, thinking how troublesome it was, and shouted for the Ravenclaws to keep up. The Ravenclaws were decidedly chattier than the Hufflepuffs, but kept their toe behind the line. Raven found that the Slytherins were an annoying bunch, especially the Malfoy boy. He was pompous and arrogant, causing Raven to almost tear his hair out as he heard Malfoy gloating to his 2 baboons about something father did. Of course, he was a trained ninja, one of the elites and a member of ANBU, so he kept his emotions in check and stayed cool, calm, and collected. That didn't stop him from plotting Malfoy's death, though. Gryffindor, Fox said, appearing in front of them. Please follow me. He led them out of the Great Hall and to the Gryffindor common room. Everyone was discussing the Triwizard Tournament. Who's this impartial judge who's going to decide who the champions are? Said Harry. Dunno, said Fred, but it's them we'll have to fool. I reckon a couple of drops of aging potion might do it, George. Dumbledore knows you're not of age, though, said Ron. Yeah, but he's not the one who decides who the champion is he? Said Fred shrewdly. Sounds to me like once this judge knows who wants to enter, he'll choose the best from each school and never mind how old they are. Dumbledore's trying to stop us giving our names. People have died, though, said Hermione in a worried voice, as they walked through a door concealed behind a tapestry and started up another, narrower staircase. So? Fox asked unconcernedly in front of them. They all jumped. They didn't know he was listening to their conversation. Hermione narrowed her eyes as he stared at Fox's back. Yeah, so what? Said Fred airily. That was years ago, wasn't it? Anyway, where's the fun without a bit of risk? Hey Ron, what if we find out how to get round Dumbledore? Fancy entering? From what I've seen, Dumbledore-san is a very wise man, Fox commented. Whatever an aging potion is, it sounds very basic and Dumbledore-san would probably have thought of that already. Right, said George, raising an eyebrow at Fox's back. Neville joined in on the conversation about the Triwizard Tournament, but then his foot sunk right through a step halfway up the stairs. I've never seen that before, Fox said, glancing down almost uncaringly at the trick step. In reality, he was analyzing it. His analytical skills had improved over the years, although he was never as good as Shikamaru or Tamari. Harry and Ron seized Neville under the armpits and pulled him out, while a suit of armor at the top of the stairs creaked and clanked, laughing wheezily. Shut it, you, said Ron, banging down its visor as they passed. Fox led them up to the entrance to the Gryffindor common room, while the students milled around behind him. Balderdash, he said clearly. The portrait swung forward to reveal a hole in the wall, through which they climbed, Fox slipping in nimbly first. He stood in front of the fire and waited until all the Gryffindors had entered, and then he called for everyone's attention. Everyone! Fox shouted. The room quieted instantly. We have set out some rules we expect you to follow. Rule 1, Fox said to the throng of Gryffindors. He looked at all of them before continuing. You must all be in your common room by 8:30 every night. That includes the weekend. Anyone found wandering around outside after curfew will be punished. Rule 2, Cat said to the silent Hufflepuffs, you all know this, but I shall repeat it again. The Forbidden Forest and the Quidditch pitch are banned. They will be our training areas. The only time you are allowed near the Forbidden Forest or the Quidditch pitch is when you have lessons there, though I highly doubt you will have lessons in the Quidditch pitch. Rule 3, Stag said lazily to the Ravenclaws, respect us and we will respect you. Oppose us and we will make your life a living hell. In the Slytherin common room, Raven wasn't as nice to the students as the other 3 guards. He found that if he scared the Slytherins hard enough, then they would shut their mouths. 3 rules, he said coldly. Rule 1, be in the common room by 8:30 or I'll kill you. Rule 2, Forbidden Forest and Quidditch pitch are banned. If I find anyone near these 2 places, I'll kill you. Rule 3, respect me, or I'll kill you. He glared around for a second, and then said, go to bed. The Slytherins scrambled up to their dorms, and Raven darted out of the common room, set up traps outside and left to the shinobi quarters. Stag, Cat and Fox set up traps outside their respective common rooms as well, and while Stag and Cat went to the shinobi quarters, Fox sighed and went back inside and slumped down on one of the squashy armchairs that sat in front of the fire, falling asleep, but kept his ears open, listening for sounds that indicated a student trying to sneak out. The next day, 7 o'clock in the morning. Everyone! Dog yelled excitedly as he burst into the shinobi quarters with Akamaru at his heels. The 9 ninja all glanced up at him, alert, but then let their guard down once they saw that Dog was excited. Something wrong? Fox asked cautiously. I found the kitchens. Dog grinned. Me and Akamaru were exploring the castle some more, and we saw the 2 redhead twins going down a few corridors, and we saw them go to a painting of a fruit bowl, and then we saw them tickle and pear, and then it laughed, and then this door appeared, and then they went inside, and then we followed them, and then we saw all these weird little creatures, and then I heard one of them say house elves and it was so cool. Whoa, slow down, Dog, Dragon laughed. Are you talking about the redhead twins that were with Potter Sand when we first saw him? Stag asked. Dog nodded. Yeah, he said. They are really nice. Made friends already, eh? Raven muttered. Wait, what were the twins doing out at 7 o'clock in the morning? Swan said, twisting around and glaring at her captain. I sent a shadow clone after them, Fox said. It hasn't dispelled yet. Oh, no wonder I saw you hanging around them, Dog said, frowning. But why did you let them go? Fox shrugged. You can learn a lot of things if you pay attention to the locals, Fox said. The twins obviously know this castle well, so I decided to follow them, not stop them. Fox dispelled his shadow clone, and his face cleared when he received the information it gathered. Yeah, well, they've shown me the kitchens, Dog said, even if it was unintentional. Can you take us there? Raccoon asked, mildly curious. Sure. Come on, Dog said. The ninja stood up and followed their enthusiastic friend out the door. Dog lead them down. Soon, the corridors were filled with pictures of food. They are really hospitable, Dog said. When the twins asked for food, the house elves looked so happy. Is that it? Slug asked, pointing to a picture of a fruit bowl. Yeah, Dog said. He stretched out a finger and tickled the pear. It giggled. That is a strange fruit, Eagle said quietly. Raven said, glaring at the pear. A door appeared, and Dog opened it. The shinobi's eyes widened slightly when they saw that the kitchen was as large as the great hall itself, with brass pots and pans hanging off the stone walls and a great brick fireplace at one end. Standing before them were at least 100 little elves, all with pencil-shaped noses, bright eyes the size of tennis balls, bat-like ears, long fingers and feet, and they all only went up to about the ninja's thigh. They were wearing the same uniform, a tea towel stamped with the Hogwarts crest, and tied like a toga. The house elves looked immensely happy that there were people here, and they bowed and curtsied as the ninja gazed around in wonder, seemingly not noticing their frightening masks, swords, and armor. Good morning, Cat said. We're sorry for bothering you this early in the morning. Good morning, sirs and ladies, squeaked a house elf with large green eyes. He was wearing an odd range of clothes, with a tea cozy for a hat, pinned with a number of bright badges, a tie patterned with horseshoes over a bare chest, and socks. Completing the outfit were what looked like children's football shorts. Welcome to the Hogwarts kitchens, another one said. Do not be sorry, we will be delighted to serve you, an elf said. Wow, Swan said. Do you guys do all the cooking? The house elves smiled and nodded at her, their bat-like ears flapping. Do you have any food? Stag asked lazily. Raccoon knocked him on the head. How much ruder can you get? Raccoon asked flatly. But the house elves looked as though Christmas had come early, because they all smiled more brightly, and a second later, a tray of onigiri came whizzing towards them. This is delicious, Slug said after taking a bite. The elves looked delighted. Would you like some tea? Asked the elf who had greeted them. Yosh, Fox said. May I please ask your name? Cat asked shyly, bending down to talk to the elf. Dobby, miss, the elf cried. Dobby at your service. My name is Cat. Pleased to meet you, Cat said, bowing down to him. Dobby stared at her, and then burst into racking sobs. Cat was startled for a second. I'm sorry, what did I do? She asked, bewildered. The other shinobi stifled snickers as they watched Cat try to calm the elf down. Professor Dumbledore has told us house elves about the new guards, but Dobby never knew they were so kind, Dobby said, tears trickling down his face. To be bowed down like that, oh, what an honor! Cat looked desperately at her friends, pleading for them to help her make Dobby stop crying. She also didn't have the heart to tell him that they normally bowed when being introduced. My name is Slug. It is also a pleasure to meet you, Slug said in an attempt to distract Dobby. But then she also made the mistake of bowing to Dobby. Dobby raised his sparkling eyes, saw the pinkhead bowing to him, and promptly burst into more sobs. Oops, Slug said. Swan clapped her hands under her mask to stop herself from laughing out loud. Most of the boys were getting served by the other house elves, and they were deaf to the commotion in front of them. We have to go, Raccoon said. It's almost time for classes to start. Ah, well, we should get going now, Fox said. Thanks for everything. He had an exceptionally full stomach. The little elves clustered around them, shoving food into their hands and waving goodbye. Cat and Slug bade farewell to the emotional Dobby. I shall see you again, Dobby said. The ninja smiled and left the kitchens. They're quite courteous, aren't they? Raven murmured as they walked back up again. The ninja stopped walking, and they all looked at Raven. What? He asked. Team, he just said a full sentence, Fox said in wonder. He stalked over to the Uchiha and poked the forehead of his mask. Who are you and what have you done to Raven? Fox asked suspiciously. Raven rolled his eyes. HN. What? No. I liked you better when you were talking. Fox yelled, grabbing Raven's shoulders and shaking him. Don't go back to the emo bastard like before. HN. No. No. Change back. Change back. HN. Arg. I give up on you. The others chuckled and returned to their quarters. Fox, sitting at the breakfast table, almost shrieked as a pearly, almost transparent ghost floated past him. But being the trained ANBU agent that he is, all he did was stiffen and pull out a kunai. Fox, it's okay, they're only ghosts, Cat said as the bloody baron drifted past them. Fox, how could you not notice them during the month we stayed here? Stag asked. I just didn't, Fox said, struggling not to scream after nearly headless Nick grinned at him. Make a scene, and your ass is going back to the ninja world, Slug hissed. Fox sweat dropped, but calmed down. Raccoon entered the hall, walking on the ceiling, drawing gasps from the students below as they looked out for the morning post. The aura around the Kazakage was content, almost happy, and when Raccoon reached the spot directly above the ninja table, he dropped. Someone catch him! Hermione screamed as she watched the figure fall. Before she could pull out her wand, however, Raccoon had already landed safely on the ground. The guards looked like nothing had happened. Why are you so happy today? Fox asked suspiciously, staring at Raccoon. I got to train. It felt good to use my muscles again, Raccoon said. Ever since he joined the Konoha Sunagekure and BU Alliance squad, he had to learn more than just his sand techniques. He had been taught how to use the various weapons that the ANBU normally carried, including the weird sword that looked like someone had cut half of it off, and sorry, I forgot what it's called. Fox, have you done the mission report? Swan asked, entering the great hall and body flickering over to the ninja table. Fox nodded. Yup, he said, I just need to finalize a few details. Fox actually finished the report? On time? Dog said, amazed. He had appeared to hear the last bit of the conversation, arriving alongside Raven. Surprise indeed, Raven said. I'm finished here, Fox said. Raccoon, can you tell everyone else what class they'll be following today? After receiving a confirmation from the redhead, he poofed to the shinobi quarters. Naruto? Hinata said, arriving at their quarters and seeing the blonde sitting there scribbling away on an armchair. Hi, Hinata, Naruto said, putting down the brush and rolling up the scroll. Do you know how to send it? Hinata asked. Oh well, I'd better to ask Dumbledore-san, Naruto said. Wanna come? Sure, Hinata said. She put her mask back on, thinking, it's not as if I have anything better to do. Good morning, Dumbledore-san, Fox said quietly out as he walked across the circular office. Dumbledore looked up and smiled at the ninja. Good morning, Captain Fox and Cat, he said warmly. What may I do for you? We're just wondering whether you know how to send this letter to Konoha, Cat said, gesturing to the scroll Fox had in his hand. But of course, Dumbledore said. He turned around and reached for a phoenix carved out of ebony on the shelf behind him. Here, if you put a letter or scroll into its mouth, it will immediately teleport to Konoha and give this to your Hokage before teleporting back. Interesting, Dumbledore-san, Fox murmured, picking up the little bird and staring at it. Keep it in your quarters, Dumbledore smiled. I believe you have to send a report every month? Yes. Amazingly, Fox actually remembered to do it this time, Cat said. Why did that sentence make me sound so irresponsible? Fox asked. Because you never used to do it, Cat said at once. Dumbledore chuckled at the two. We should get going. Thanks, Dumbledore-san, Fox said. Pleasure, Dumbledore said. The two guards walked out of the headmaster's office and outside, they clamped the scroll into the ebony phoenix's mouth. A second later, it disappeared with a poof. So, what do you want to do? Fox asked. Train, she said truthfully. Fox grinned at her. Yeah, let's train. Where do you want to go, Quidditch pitch or Forbidden Forest? Fox asked. Pitch, Cat answered. The two body flickered to the pitch, marveled at its vast size and then went into their fighting stances. Okay, get ready, Fox said. Cat lowered herself into her position, a kunai at the ready, her Byakugan activated behind her mask. Start. The two ran towards each other and clashed in the middle. Sparks flew as their kunai met, and the two sprang apart. Kaige Bunshin no Jutsu! Fox shouted. 5 Narutos appeared and they all charged at the lone figure. Cat gentle-fisted all of them and quickly found out that the real Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, Dragon had been given the task of following around Harry Potter for the day. She dutifully kept 5 paces behind the trio, who were ignoring her, although Hermione kept looking at the guard as though she wanted to examine her. They walked to the sodden vegetable patch until they arrived at Greenhouse 3. Professor Sprout stood there, smiling under her flyaway gray hair, and although she was a little averted to her, welcomed Dragon into the greenhouse as well. Why is she following us? Hermione whispered, glancing at the guard. Professor Sprout then proceeded to distract them by showing them the ugliest plants Harry had ever seen. Indeed, they looked less like plants than thick black giant slugs, protruding vertically out of the soil. Each was squirming slightly, and had a number of large, shiny swelling upon it, which appeared to be full of liquid. Bubotubers, Professor Sprout told them briskly. They need squeezing. You will collect the pus. The what? Said Seamus Finnegan, sounding revolted. Pus, Finnegan, pus, said Professor Sprout while Dragon muttered a that's disgusting behind her. It's extremely valuable, so don't waste it. You will collect the pus, I say, in these bottles. Wear your dragon hide gloves, it can do funny things to the skin when undiluted, Bubotuber pus. Dragon wrinkled her nose and almost gagged as the unfamiliar smell of petrol reached her trained nose. She observed with repulsed interest as the students squeezed the plants, releasing a large amount of thick, yellowish-green liquid. A booming bell echoed from the castle and the students moved off to their next classes. As Dragon made her way down the sloping lawn to Hagrid's cabin, Fox and Raven caught up to her. Yo, sorry we're late, Fox said. Cat wanted to spar some more. Dragon rolled her eyes. Yeah, excuses, she said. Is everything okay? Fox asked. Apart from my nose nearly dying from a couple of plants, everything's fine, Dragon said. Fox laughed. We should catch up to them, Raven pointed out. What are you guys doing here anyway? Dragon asked, following the trio. There's nothing for us to do, so a couple of us are gonna follow the classes, Fox said. They reached Hagrid's hut, where the man himself was standing, one hand on the collar of his enormous black boarhound, Fong. There were several open wooden crates on the ground on his feet, and Fong was whimpering and straining at his collar, apparently keen to investigate the contents more closely. Good morning, Hagrid-san, Fox said, while Dragon waved. Hagrid smiled at them. Hi, Fox, Dragon, Raven, he said. He greeted the trio in front of them. Beer wait fair the Slytherins, they won't want to miss this, blasted and its scrits. Come again? Said Ron. Hagrid pointed down into the crates. Ugh! Squealed Lavender Brown, jumping backwards. Gross, Dragon moaned. First Bubbletubers, now this? They both stink like hell. Bubbletubers, Hermione said, unable to resist correcting her. Blast-ended squirts looked like deformed, shell-less lobsters, horribly pale and very slimy looking, with legs sticking out in very odd places and no visible heads. There were about 100 of them in each crate, bumping blindly into the sides of the boxes. They were giving off a very powerful smell of rotting fish. Every now and then, sparks would fly out of the end of a squid, and, with a small thud, it would be propelled forward. Ani just hatched, said Hagrid proudly while Fox, Raven and Dragon cringed from the smell, so you'll be able to raise them yourselves. Thought we'd make a bit of a project of it. And why would we want to raise them? Asked a cold voice. The Slytherins had arrived. The speaker was Draco Malfoy. Crabbe and Goyle were chuckling appreciatively at his words. Hagrid looked stumped at the question. I mean, what do they do? Asked Malfoy. What is the point of them? Hagrid evidently could not answer, and so Fox jumped to his rescue. He had taken a liking to the giant teacher, although he didn't show it. You raise them, they'll probably grow, and then you can use them in battle, Fox said. Those burners and stinger thingies can come in handy. Malfoy glanced at Fox with "You're joking, right? Look." Well, you can try feeding them with eggs and frog livers and a bit o' grass snake. Just try 'em out with a bit of each, Hagrid said, trying to get back on track. First pus and now this, muttered Seamus. Nothing but deep affection for Hagrid could have made Harry, Ron and Hermione pick up squelchy handfuls of frog liver and lower them into the crates to tempt the blast-ended squirts. Harry couldn't suppress the suspicion that the whole thing was entirely pointless, because the squirts didn't seem to have mouths. He also couldn't help noticing that the guards stayed well away. Ouch! Yelled Dan Thomas, after about 10 minutes. It got me! Hagrid hurried over to him, looking anxious. It's exploded, said Dean angrily, showing Hagrid a burn on his hand. Yeah, that can happen when they blast off, said Hagrid, nodding. EW, said Lavender Brown again. EW, Hagrid, what's that pointy thing on it? Some of them have stings, said Hagrid enthusiastically. Lavender quickly withdrew her hand from the box. I reckon they're the males. The females got sorta sucker things on their bellies. I think they might be to suck blood. Well, I can certainly see why we're trying to keep them alive, said Malfoy sarcastically. Who wouldn't want pets that can burn, sting and bite all at once? The ninja couldn't help but agree with him. Well, at least the squirts are small, said Ron, as they made their way back up to the castle for lunch an hour later. They are now, said Hermione in an exasperated voice, but once Hagrid's found out what they eat, I expect they'll be much bigger. They sat down at the Gryffindor table, while the guards went off to the ninja table, where the rest of the guards already sat. After lunch, Swan and Dog followed Harry and his friends to the North Tower. A sweet perfume wafted down the stepladder that led to Professor Trelawney's room. Good day, said the misty voice of Professor Trelawney right behind Harry, making him jump. A very thin woman with enormous glasses that made her eyes appear far too large for her face, Professor Trelawney was peering down at Harry with the tragic expression she always wore whenever she saw him. The usual amount of large beads, chains and bangles glittered upon her person in the firelight. Swan scoffed silently as she led the way to a table with 2 chintz armchairs by the curtained window. She had met Professor Trelawney while she was exploring the school on the first week, and found her to be extremely annoying. Dog, meanwhile, had to leave Akamaru outside the classroom for 2 reasons. 1. Dogs could not climb ladders, even though he was a mean dog and could climb trees, but let's ignore that little fact, and 2. Akamaru didn't like the powerful scent. Dog found the classroom to be suffocating, literally. He was trying to not breathe in the heavily perfumed air, but since having a nose sharper than a mean dog's, he found the scented air too unbearable. Swan struggled not to laugh as she watched Dog slump down, and she bent forward to retrieve her unconscious teammate. What happened to him? Harry asked, glad for the distraction in the class. The students were murmuring and laughing at the guard. Swan straightened up and looked around. I thought ninja were supposed to be strong and everything. Why did he faint? Dog has got a nose sharper than a dog's, and all this perfume is too strong for him, Swan said, glaring at the boy. So, do any of you happen to have anything sharp? She asked the class. Everyone shook their heads, and Professor Trelawney descended upon the blonde guard. You, my child, she intoned. Swan looked up, irritated as she tried to get the knockout dog onto her back. Yes? Swan asked. You have killed many, correct? Trelawney whispered. Swan nodded and began maneuvering between the poufs and armchairs. My, what a difficult life you've led. Your existence has been plagued with blood, death, and pain. You witnessed the passing of your teacher. What of it? Swan hissed. She walked over to the trapdoor with dog on her back. She didn't like people telling her life story out to a bunch of teenagers. Balancing dog, Swan lifted her mask up just high enough so that she could bite her thumb. What is she doing? Ron whispered. Harry shrugged and continued watching the guard. She said something strange while making hand signs and slammed her palm to the ground. Thin, squiggly black lines spread out from where her palm was. A second later, there was a poof of smoke and a dove appeared. The guard greeted it. Hi, Miko, Swan said. Hello, Swanson, the dove said. A few of the students gasped, including Harry. Trelawney looked highly affronted that she was being ignored and stalked over to her winged armchair in a huff. Well, may you please leave? You are disrupting my class, she said snappishly. Yeah, in a sec, Swan said. She turned back to her summon. Miko, could you get Stag for me? Tell him to come to the North Tower to watch over the class. Miko nodded and spread her wings, and Swan opened the trapdoor for the bird to fly down. I'll be leaving now, Swan announced. See ya. Swan lightly leapt down the trapdoor and shut the door behind her. Well, come now, back to work, Trelawney said huffily after the guard had left. She returned to telling the class about them studying about stars, which was then interrupted by Stag entering the classroom and falling asleep within 5 minutes of entry. At the end of the lesson, she seemed to be in a bad mood and so gave them a pile of homework. Hermione caught up to Harry and Ron on the way to dinner, and as they joined the line, someone yelled out Ron's name. Weasley! Hey, Weasley! Harry, Ron, and Hermione turned, expecting to see their least favorite person in the world. They were not disappointed, because standing there, in all their Slytherin glory, were Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. Unfortunately, they all looked pleased with something. What? Said Ron shortly. Your dad's in the paper, Weasley, said Malfoy, brandishing a copy of the Daily Prophet, and speaking very loudly, so that everyone in the packed entrance hall could hear. Listen to this. As Malfoy read out the details of the story, Ron became redder and redder. And there's a picture, Weasley, said Malfoy, flipping the paper over and holding it up. A picture of your parents outside their house, if you call it a house. Your mother could do with losing a bit of weight, couldn't she? Ron was shaking with fury. Everyone was staring at him. You know, drawled a cool voice from behind Malfoy. Malfoy shrieked and twisted around, coming face to face, well, it was actually face to neck, with the guard Stag. To insult one's parents is considered one of the lowest forms of rudeness one could give another in our world, Stag stated. Don't do it again. As he turned around and started to walk away, he heard Malfoy drawing out his wand. Watch out! Hermione screamed as Malfoy raised his arm. A red curse flew directly at Stag, who simply yawned and stepped to the side. Stag turned back his head lazily. There was a bang. Oh no you don't, laddie! Harry looked around and saw Professor Moody limping down the marble staircase. His wand was out and it was pointing right at a pure white ferret, which was shivering on the stone-flagged floor, exactly where Malfoy had been standing. There was a terrified silence in the entrance hall. Nobody but Moody and Stag was moving a muscle. Moody turned to look at Stag, at least, his normal eye was looking at Stag. The other one was pointing into the back of his head. Did he get you? Moody growled. His voice was low and gravelly. Does it look like he did? Stag asked lazily. Moody nodded, and then turned back to the ferret. It gave a terrified squeak and took off, streaking towards the dungeons. I don't think so, roared Moody, pointing his wand at the ferret again. It flew a few meters up into the air, fell with a smack to the floor, and then bounced upwards once more. I don't like people who attack when their opponent's back's turned, especially when the opponent doesn't have a wand, even though I'm sure Stag can take care of himself, growled Moody, as the ferret bounced higher and higher, squealing in pain. Stinking, cowardly, scummy thing to do. The ferret flew through the air, its legs and tail flailing helplessly. Never do that again, said Moody, speaking each word as the ferret hit the stone floor and bounced up again. "Professor Moody," said a shocked voice. Professor McGonagall was coming down the marble staircase with her arms full of books. "Hello, Professor McGonagall," said Moody calmly, bouncing the ferret still higher. What are you doing?" said Professor McGonagall, her eyes following the bouncing ferret's progress through the air. "Teaching," said Moody. "Teach, Moody, is that a student?" shrieked Professor McGonagall, the books spilling out of her arms. "Yep," said Moody. "No!" cried Professor McGonagall, running down the stairs and pulling out her wand. A moment later, without a loud snapping noise, Draco Malfoy had reappeared, lying in a heap on the floor with his sleek blonde hair all over his now brilliantly pink face. He got to his feet, wincing. "Moody, we never use transfiguration as a punishment," said Professor McGonagall weakly. "Surely Professor Dumbledore told you that?" "He might have mentioned it, yes," said Moody, scratching his chin unconcernedly, "but I thought a good sharp shock." "We give detentions, Moody. Or speak to the offender's head of house." "I'll do that then," said Moody, staring at Malfoy with great dislike. "No, I'll do it," Stagg said. "He tried to curse me, so I'll deal out the punishment." Malfoy, who looked mighty relieved to be out of Moody's presence, suddenly looked terrified as Stagg took his upper arm and led him away. Professor McGonagall stared anxiously after them for a few moments, and then waved her wand at her fallen books, causing them to soar up into the air and back into her arms. "Don't talk to me," Ron said quietly to Harry and Hermione, as they sat down at the Gryffindor table a few minutes later, surrounded by excited talk on all sides about what had just happened. "Why not?" said Hermione in surprise. "Because I want to fix that in my memory forever," said Ron, his eyes closed and an uplifted expression on his face. Draco Malfoy, the amazing bouncing ferret. Harry and Hermione both laughed, and Hermione began doling beef casserole onto each of their plates. "He could have really hurt Malfoy though," she said. "It was good, really, that Professor McGonagall stopped it." "Hermione!" said Ron furiously, his eyes snapping open again. "You're ruining the best moment in my life." Hermione made an impatient noise and began to eat at top speed. "Don't tell me you're going back to the library this evening?" said Harry, watching her. "Got to," said Hermione thickly. "Loads to do, and it's not schoolwork." Within 5 minutes she had cleared her plate and departed. No sooner had she gone than her seat was taken by Fred Weasley. "Moody," he said. "How cool is he?" "Beyond cool," said George, sitting down opposite Fred. "Super cool," said Twins' best friend, Lee Jordan, sliding into the seat beside George. "We had him this afternoon," he told Harry and Ron. "What was it like?" said Harry eagerly. Fred, George, and Lee exchanged looks full of meaning. "Never had a lesson like it," said Fred. "He knows, man," said Lee. "Knows what?" said Ron, leaning forwards. "Knows what it's like to be out there doing it," said George impressively. "Doing what?" said Harry. "Fighting the dark arts," said Fred. "He's seen it all," said George. "'Mazing," said Lee. Ron dived into his bag for his timetable. "We haven't got him till Thursday," he said in a disappointed voice. Up at the ninja table, Eagle was looking around with his Byakugan activated. What he saw piqued his interest slightly. "Fox," he said in a low voice. Fox glanced up at him. "Yeah?" he asked, noting the tiny trace of urgency in the Huba's voice. "There's an unusually large amount of chakra-like energy surrounding the body of Mad-Eye Moody," he said. "It worries me." Fox frowned. "Well, we can't do anything about it. All we can do is keep an eye on him," Fox said. Eagle nodded with a troubled expression on his face. Harry was sitting in the Gryffindor common room and noticed Colin Creevey bounding over to him and readied himself. Colin was a bit too hyper for Harry's tastes. "Hiya, Harry," Colin said enthusiastically. "Professor Dumbledore wanted me to give this to you." He handed Harry a scroll sealed with a purple ribbon. Right. "Thanks, Colin," Harry said. The tiny little boy waved and went over to his brother. "What does it say?" Hermione asked, looking over his shoulder. Harry shrugged and turned the scroll over, and recognized the familiar, slanting handwriting of the headmaster. He undid the ribbon and unfurled it. Inside was a very short letter. "Good evening, Harry. Please meet me in my office as soon as possible. Albus Dumbledore." "I have to go," Harry said. It says that Dumbledore wants to meet me straight away. See you later, Ron said as he and Hermione watched their friend disappear through the portrait hole. It wasn't past curfew yet, but still, Harry walked quickly towards Dumbledore's office. He spotted the headmaster waiting for him outside the stone gargoyle. Dumbledore turned towards him and smiled, his blue eyes bright. "Ah, hello, Harry," he said. "Please come with me." Dumbledore led then Harry into his office, Harry feeling thoroughly confused. "Now I'm sure you are wondering what I wanted, no?" Dumbledore said, seating himself behind his desk in his circular office. Harry sat in the chair in front of him. The office was, as usual, filled with little contraptions and whizzing noises. "Yes, Professor," Harry said. "It's about the guards," Dumbledore said. Harry was taken aback. He hadn't expected this. "Excuse me?" "The guards, Harry, the guards," Dumbledore said, looking amused at his confusion. "I need to tell you the other reason why they are here." Harry felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. He thought he knew what was coming. "They're here to protect me as well," Harry said dully, catching on. Dumbledore nodded. "So that's why they always seem to be following him." "I hope you do not take offense to this, Harry, but trouble seems to find you more easily than it does for other students," Dumbledore said. Harry felt faint annoyance boil in his stomach. "But, Professor, I can take care of myself," Harry blurted out before he could stop himself. "I am sure you can, but we are dealing with things both inside and outside of Hogwarts," Dumbledore said gravely, his blue eyes serious. "We need all the help we can get, and the ninja are experts at things like this. And especially this year, when we are hosting the Triwizard Tournament, a lot can go wrong." Harry nodded mutely, resigning to his fate. "I understand, Professor," he said. "Good," said Dumbledore, an air of finality to his tone. Harry took that as a signal to leave. "And Harry?" Dumbledore said just as he opened the door. Harry glanced at the headmaster. "Yes?" "Don't make this hard for the guards. They are just doing their jobs." "Yeah." "Tonight, I want Shikamaru staying in the Ravenclaw common room," Naruto said. Shikamaru grumbled, but obeyed the captain. It was about 6 o'clock that evening, and the ninja were relaxing in their quarters. Naruto had decided that it was time for the irregular and random checkups that the guards had to do on all the houses, which simply meant that the guards assigned to a house had to go and spend a night in their respective common rooms. Stag found the Ravenclaws to be extremely studious. He watched them all pore over books or chant spells. The only interesting person he found in there was a third-year girl by the name of Luna Lovegood. She was a very airy-fairy person, always looking as though she was drifting off into her own little world. She had long blonde hair that fell to her waist and bright blue eyes. She was certainly strange. She kept her wand tucked behind her ear and read a magazine upside down. Stag thought that Luna Lovegood was very interesting, but found that she was made fun of a lot and didn't have any close friends. Stag saw a few girls sneaking out of the third-year dorms while Luna was curled up in a corner, reading her magazine and deaf and blind to the world around her. He noticed that the girls were holding a few of Luna's things, 2 textbooks and her pencil case. They were giggling slightly and tried to go out of their common room. "Where do you think you're going?" Stag asked coolly, appearing behind them. The girls gave tiny shrieks and whirled around. The rest of the common room fell silent as its occupants looked on in interest. "Just going somewhere," one of the girls stammered. "With Lovegood sans things?" Stag asked dryly. The girls flushed and tried to think up excuses, but failed. Stag held out a hand and the girls dumped Luna's possessions into it. "Here," Stag murmured, tossing Luna her books and pencil case. She caught it, surprised, but smiled at the guard. "Thank you very much," she said sincerely. Stag inclined his head, and as he sat back down in front of the fireplace again, she went up to her dorm to put her things away. "Guess there are annoying people in all dimensions," Stag muttered, referring to the girls. With the knowledge that Harry had received from Dumbledore about the guards, the scarred boy felt a wave of annoyance go through him, although he tried to quell it. He knew it wasn't the ninja's fault, but he still didn't like the fact that they were guarding him. That night, he had gone back to the common room to find Hermione and Ron waiting anxiously for him. He had sat down and told them everything. "That makes sense," Hermione said after he had finished. "No wonder they're always in all of our classes." "You're really that important, eh?" Ron said, punching Harry lightly on the arm. "Don't die on us." "But what danger is there to guard me from anyway?" Harry said. "You know who," Hermione said, pointing out the obvious. "There are lots of people and things that want to harm you, Pottersan," whispered a voice. Hermione stifled a shriek as Eagle appeared out of the shadows. Hi, Eagle, Harry said, a tad resentfully. The guard nodded at him, his silver armor gleaming dully in the firelight. I see Dumbledore-san has told you the truth, Eagle said. Now please, just stay out of trouble. It will make our jobs much easier without us having to watch your back. I know from Dumbledore-san that whenever there is trouble, you three, particularly Potter-san, will be in the midst of it. Harry, stung by these words, could merely nod as Eagle melted back into the shadows again. Though it was a magic school, Hogwarts was not immune to gossip, and rumors had already started to spread when people began to notice that the ninja followed Harry around like they were his bodyguards. Is Potter that important? He's the golden boy, isn't he? Why is it always Potter? They follow him around like dogs. Harry wasn't sure about the guards, but it sure was getting on his nerves. Could you guys stop following me? He asked irritably as Swan tailed him from Transfiguration. The girl regarded him coolly. Orders are orders, Potter-san, she said. Besides, you know why we're here. Harry didn't answer. Of course he knew why they were here. But do you have to follow me so obviously? He asked. Could you make it look like you aren't following me when you actually are, or something? Who died and made you boss? Swan asked. Stop telling me what to do and get on to your next class. Annoyed, Harry bit his lip, preventing him from retorting back and strode off. Why do you think Snape-san hates Longbottom-san so much? Slug murmured to Raccoon as they watched Neville melt his sixth cauldron in potions. Well, Longbottom-san does seem to be very clumsy, Raccoon said. Maybe Snape-san just gets annoyed by him. Yes, but he seems to hate everyone apart from the Slytherins, Slug said. He is head of Slytherin, Raccoon said. The bell rung and the guards ended their conversation, following Harry Potter and his friends. Fox, where the hell have you been? Slug hissed when their captain finally caught up with the pair. Some kids were ditching class, he said, annoyed. Why are they so eager? Slug asked as the Gryffindor fourth years lined up outside their Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom early. The students filed in, and the guards took their usual seats at the back of the classroom, half in shadow. They watched as the golden trio headed to the front, right in front of the teacher's desk. The class was unusually quiet, and soon, they heard Moody's distinctive clunking footsteps coming down the corridor, and he entered the room, looking as strange and as frightening as ever. They could just see his clawed, wooden foot protruding from underneath his robes. You can put those away, he growled, stumping over to his desk and sitting down, those books. You won't need them. They returned the books to their bags, and Slug saw Ron looking extremely excited. Moody took out a register, shook his long man of grizzled gray hair out of his twisted and scarred face and began to call out names, his normal eye moving steadily down the list while his magical eye swiveled around, fixing upon each student as he or she answered. Right then, he said, when the last person had declared themselves present, I've a letter. The guards ignored Moody and started their own conversation. So what does this class about again? Fox asked. A vein appeared on Slug's forehead. If, she said with deliberate slowness, you actually listened to Dumbledore-san while he was explaining the classes, you would know. But you know that I don't listen, Fox pointed out unhelpfully. It's just as the name suggests. Defense Against the Dark Arts. They are defending themselves against the dark arts, which is black magic, Raccoon explained tonelessly. That makes sense, Fox said. They noted that Moody's eye could see through walls, desks, and the back of his head as he scolded Lavender Brown for not listening to him, and showing her friend a horoscope underneath the desk. So do any of you know which curses are most heavily punished by wizarding law? The ninja cocked their heads in interest. They wanted to see what the most dangerous curses in the wizarding world included. Several hands rose tentatively into the air, including Ron's and Hermione's. Moody pointed at Ron, though his magical eye was still fixed on Lavender. Said Ron tentatively, my dad told me about one. Is it called the Imperious Curse, or something? Ah, yes, said Moody appreciatively. Your father would know that one. Gave the ministry a lot of trouble at one time, the Imperious Curse. Moody got heavily to his mismatched feet, opened his desk drawer, and took out a glass jar. The shinobi saw 3 large, black spiders scuttling around inside it. Ron recoiled slightly. Sakura thought, I don't like spiders. Moody reached into the jar, caught one of the spiders and held it in the palm of his hand. He muttered, Imperio. The spider leapt from Moody's hand on a fine thread of silk, and began to swing backwards and forwards as though on a trapeze. It stretched out its legs rigidly, then did a back flip, breaking the thread and landing on the desk, where it began to cartwheel in circles. Moody jerked his wand, and the spider rose onto two of its hind legs and went into what was unmistakably a tap dance. Everyone was laughing, apart from Moody and the guards. "Che," Fox muttered, "as if that curse is anything special." "Think it's funny, do you?" Moody growled. "You'd like it, would you, if I did it to you?" The laughter died away almost instantly. "Total control," said Moody quietly, as the spider balled itself up and began to roll over and over. "I could make it jump out of the window, drown itself, throw itself down one of your throats." Ron gave an involuntary shudder. "Years back, there were a lot of witches and wizards being controlled by the Imperious Curse," said Moody, and Slug knew he was talking about the days in which Voldemort had been all-powerful. Some job for the Ministry, trying to sort out who was being forced to act, and who was acting of their own free will. "The Imperious Curse can be fought, and I'll be teaching you how, but it takes real strength of character, and not everyone's got it. Better avoid being hit with it if you can. Constant vigilance," he barked, and the students jumped. "Anyone else know one? Another illegal curse?" Neville's hand rose hesitantly into the air. "Yes?" said Moody, his magical eye rolling right over to fix on Neville. "There's one, the Cruciatus Curse," said Neville, in a small but distinct voice. "Your name's Longbottom?" he said, his magical eye swooping down to check the register again. Neville nodded nervously, but Moody made no further inquiries. Turning back to the class at large, he reached into the jar for the next spider and placed it on the desktop, where it remained motionless, apparently too scared to move. "The Cruciatus Curse," said Moody. "Needs to be a bit bigger for you to get the idea," he said, pointing his wand at the spider. "Engorgio." The spider swelled. It was now larger than a tarantula. Abandoning all pretense, Ron pushed his chair backwards, as far away from Moody's desk as possible. Moody raised his wand again, pointed it at the spider, and muttered, "Crucio." At once, the spider's legs bent in upon its body. It rolled over and began twitching horribly, rocking from side to side. No sound came from it, but Harry was sure that if it could have give voice, it would have been screaming. While it would be useful to know how to use this curse, Slug thought, it would be so much easier to torture someone without getting your hands all dirty. Moody did not remove his wand, which was still casting the Cruciatus Curse on the spider, and the spider started to shudder and jerk more violently. "Stop it!" Hermione said shrilly. Slug looked around at her. She was looking, not at the spider, but at Neville Longbottom, and Slug, following her gaze, saw that Neville's hands were clenched upon the desk in front of him, his knuckles white, his eyes wide and horrified. Moody raised his wand. The spider's legs relaxed, but it continued to twitch. "Reducio," Moody muttered. And the spider shrank back to its proper size. He put it back into the jar. "Pain," said Moody softly. "You don't need thumbscrews or knives to torture someone if you can perform the Cruciatus Curse. Right? Anyone know any others?" Slug looked around. From the looks on everyone's faces, she guessed they were all wondering what was going to happen to the last spider. So innocent, Slug thought. Hermione's hand shook slightly as, for the third time, she raised it into the air. "Yes?" said Moody, looking at her. "Avada Kedavra," Hermione whispered. Several people looked uneasily around at her, including Ron. "Ah," said Moody, another slight smile twisting his lopsided mouth. "Yes, the last and worst. Avada Kedavra, the killing curse." He put his hand into the glass jar, and almost as though it knew what was coming, the third spider scuttled frantically around the bottom of the jar, trying to evade Moody's fingers, but he trapped it, and placed it upon the desktop. It started to scuttle frantically across the wooden surface. Moody raised his wand, and the guards looked on curiously. "Avada Kedavra!" Moody roared. There was a flash of blinding green light and a rushing sound, as though a vast, invisible something was soaring through the air. Instantaneously the spider rolled over onto its back, unmarked, but unmistakably dead. Several of the girls stifled cries. Ron had thrown himself backwards and almost toppled off his seat as the spider skidded towards him. The guards looked on stonily. Moody swept the dead spider off the desk onto the floor. "Not nice," he said calmly. "Not pleasant. And there's no counter-curse. There's no blocking it. Only one known person has ever survived it, and he's sitting right in front of me." Harry felt his face redden as Moody's eyes, both of them, looked into his own. He could feel everyone else looking around at him, too. Harry stared at the blank blackboard as though fascinated by it, but not really seeing it at all. The class stayed silent for a few minutes, before it was broken by a sound coming from the back of the room. The students' heads turned, and they found Fox looking at them at what they thought to be an incredulous way. "Is that all?" Fox asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Harry's mouth dropped open. What did he mean by "is that all"? "Sorry to disappoint you, but that is the 3 illegal curses of the wizarding world," Moody growled. Fox started to laugh, his body hunched over the desk, his shoulders shaking. The class made no noise as they watched him snicker. "It's not that funny," Slug told him. "You're kidding, right?" Fox said finally after he finished his laughing fit. "What do you mean?" Harry asked, voicing what everyone was thinking inside. "Those curses, they're not even that bad," Fox said. "Surely that must be other curses worse than those 3. Slug rolled her eyes and smacked his head. "Shut up, it's not up to you to decide whether they're bad or not," Slug said. "But I don't understand," she added, staring at Moody. "Why is Imperious Curse made one of the unforgivables?" "Because it can make people do things they don't want to," Moody said. "And?" Slug prompted. "That is considered a crime." "Right. Are you sure there isn't anything else?" Fox asked, frowning now. He had realized that Moody was being serious. "No, those are the 3. If you're so unimpressed, then tell us what your world doesn't allow," Moody said. "Well, I guess we will allow anything," Slug said thoughtfully, thinking about it for the first time. "Even the mass murder of a nation, although whoever responsible will be wanted internationally." Harry's breath hitched in his throat. He didn't think he wanted these people guarding him anymore. "We allow things like mind control, torture and killing in our society," Raccoon said quietly. "We don't even think about it." "Swan has a special mind-body control technique unique to only her clan," Slug said. "It's really useful for slipping into an enemy's lair." "We torture people all the time. It's one of the most efficient ways of getting information out of someone," Fox said dismissively. "It's not that hard to find someone who has killed people by the age of 6, Raccoon supplied. "The general age of killing starts around 12, especially when ninja enter the Chunin exam. Even if they don't take their life directly, they do it indirectly, such as leaving them in fatal traps and such. It's not uncommon." "Well, Raccoon started to kill people when he was 6 or 7, Fox muttered, his lips twitching. "Left dead bodies everywhere too." "What's the Chunin exam?" Seamus Finnegan asked. "An exam," Slug said unhelpfully. "But taking someone's life, that's just wrong," Hermione burst out. "Don't you people have any conscience? Do the words comrade or compassion or help mean anything to you? Have you all just become heartless monsters?" Hermione's eyes widened as she covered her mouth, clearing, wishing that she didn't say the last part. The temperature in the classroom dropped down to 0. Despite their faces being covered by masks, everyone could tell that the guards were glaring lightning strikes at the bushy-haired girl. "Don't make assumptions," Slug said, her voice eerily calm. "We may be cold at times, and we may seem callous, but don't you dare say that we are heartless monsters," Raccoon hissed. His sand slithered around restlessly as it poured out of the gourd, rearing up and then dropping down again. "You can call us anything you like, think of us any way you want, but we are not monsters. Yes, we understand the words comrade and compassion and help, but in our world, if you show any sympathy or mercy to an enemy, you will die," Fox said. His voice had gone unusually frigid. Slug closed her eyes behind her mask, and then opened them, disheartened. It saddened her to know that even though it had been so long since Fox and Raccoon were last called monsters, they still reacted badly to that word. She put a hand on both Fox's and Raccoon's arms and they glanced at her, resigning. "I'm sorry," Slug said to Moody, "we did not mean to interrupt your class. Please continue." Moody didn't say anything, but turned to the board behind him and waved his wand, making words appear. He instructed the class to copy them down, and they did so for the rest of the lesson in silence. No one spoke until the bell rang, and once outside the classroom, they burst into excited chatter. Harry didn't find the class very entertaining. He had learned how his parents had died, as well as other disturbing facts about their guards. "Hurry up," Hermione said tensely to Harry and Ron. "Not the ruddy library again?" said Ron. "No," said Hermione curtly, pointing up a side passage. "Neville." Neville was standing alone, halfway up the passage, staring at the stone all opposite him with the same horrified, wide-eyed look he had worn when Moody had demonstrated the Cruciatus Curse. "Neville?" Hermione said gently. Neville looked around. "Oh, hello," he said, his voice much higher than usual. "Interesting lesson, wasn't it?" He was about to say more, but then squeaked when Raccoon, Fox, and Slug appeared behind him. Longbottom-san, Slug said softly, we're sorry if we upset you during the lesson. She had noticed that Neville was looking completely sickened during their little speech. That's okay, Neville said, his voice still in the higher octaves. No, Neville, it's not okay, Harry said. Anger boiled in his stomach. He turned to the guards. What right have you people got that allows you to take the lives of others? That curse, Avada Kedavra, it killed my parents. It killed countless other people. Are you guys really that used to death that you don't feel a thing when someone dies in front of you? The guards did not say a thing, but Harry had the distinct impression that the ninja were staring mockingly at him. Fox scoffed. So young and naive, he said with a laugh, although it was the coldest laugh Harry had ever heard. Now, Potter-san, can I ask you a question? Harry stared icily at him. Have you ever felt helpless? Huh. Do you know what it means to be a ninja? Fox asked, changing the question. Neville, Hermione, and Ron were forgotten as Harry stared angrily at the guards. The hell I don't. And why would I want to know? Harry hissed. A shinobi lives alongside death, Raccoon stated. A shinobi is a tool, nothing more, nothing less. We exist to fight. We exist to kill. In our world, it is thought that one is a true ninja when you are able to rid yourself completely of emotions, when you become nothing more than a killing machine. Do you know how that is gained? It is gained by killing all your friends. It is gained by the simple bloody murder of all the people who worked alongside you to strive to become ninja. The same people who comforted you when you were upset, made you laugh when you're not supposed to, and were just there for you. You had to kill them all, Slug said, remembering back to what Zabuza had told them about Miss Ninja. To be a shinobi, you live the risk of getting yourself killed on mission. You risk getting your friends hurt and murdered. We have felt the feeling of helplessness more than we can count. We have seen the spark of life leave someone's eyes countless times. In most cases, it is us who are the cause of their death, Fox said, his wintry eyes glaring out from behind his mask. Hermione sucked in a breath. There was a tense silence as the ninja and magical folk regarded each other coldly. Neville tried to blend into the background. An odd, clunking noise sounded behind them, and they turned to see Professor Moody limping across to them. The shinobi inclined their heads, and then put their hands in a strange position and poofed away, making the wizards and witches jump. It's all right, Sonny, Moody said to Neville. Why don't you come up to my office? Come on, we can have a cup of tea. Neville looked even more frightened at the prospect of tea with Moody. He neither moved nor spoke. Moody turned his magical eye upon Harry. You all right, are you, Potter? Yes, said Harry, almost defiantly. Moody's blue eye quivered slightly in its socket as it surveyed Harry. You've got to know. It seems harsh, maybe, but you've got to know. No point pretending, heck, those guards are even wiser than you are. Harry hissed silently at that. Neville looked pleadingly at Harry, Ron, and Hermione as Moody drew away, but as none of them said anything, he was forced to follow. You told Potter-san too much, Sakura, Naruto said as they sat in the comfy armchairs. You told him too much about our world. I know, I'm sorry. But he was getting on my nerves, Sakura sighed. How the Miss used to train their shinobi is none of Potter-san's business, Gaara said. I know, Sakura said. I guess I just wanted to scare him. It won't happen again. And besides, Gaara continued, only the Mist ever used that test. It was rumored that the Foundation used to do that as well, to rid the shinobi of their emotions, Naruto said. And then they end up as jerks like Sai. He's getting better though, Sakura said. He knows that he shouldn't call people rude names. And yet he still calls you old hag, Naruto said dryly. What's wrong? Ino asked as she watched Naruto, Gaara, and Sakura sitting in the armchairs and staring into the fire almost moodily. Long lesson with Moody-san, Naruto replied. It sure dug up a lot of skeletons in my closet. Ino raised her eyebrows, not getting what her captain was telling her, but decided not to pursue it. Where's everyone? Naruto asked, noticing the other ninja's absence. Training. I'm gonna go train, Naruto said. I'm feeling really tense. I'll come, Gaara said quietly. The pair pulled on their masks again and body flickered out to the Forbidden Forest for some sparring. Sakura sighed as Ino sat down next to her. Tiring day? Ino smiled. Sakura smiled half-heartedly. Yeah, she murmured. The two sat in silence for a while, Sakura pondering, Ino relaxing, both waiting for the others to return. Eagle and Dragon came back first, their normally spotless armor covered in dirt and blood. They sat on the couch together after greeting Sakura and Ino, not bothering to go and change. They did, however, take their masks off, revealing flushed faces and tired eyes. Niji trained me like hell, Tenten moaned. Her head drooped onto Niji's shoulder, her lean body relaxed and floppy. I'm so tired. Sakura and Ino tried to keep their faces neutral as they watched the Tenten-Niji interaction unfolding before them. Good evening, everyone, Kat said, entering the shinobi quarters. Hi Hinata, Ino said cheerily as the Hyuga took her mask off. I'm off to bed, Tenten mumbled, staggering up and walking slowly to the dorms. How hard did you train her, Niji? Sakura asked. She looks dead on her feet. Niji let out a breath. Believe it or not, she pushed me pretty far as well, Niji said. His pearly eyes had shadows beneath them, and Niji felt as though every muscle in his body decided to scream at him. I'm going to bed too. Is everyone else not back yet? Hinata asked. Gaara and Naruto just went out, Sakura said. The door opened and Dog and Stag entered, Akamaru padding along behind them. I hate Akamaru right now, Stag said, peeling off his mask. Ino raised an eyebrow. Akamaru pissed on him, Kiba explained, his mask dangling from one hand. It's like freaking acid, Shikamaru groaned. See? He held out his foot, which showed several burns. Here, Sakura laughed. Her hand glowed green and she healed his foot. Akamaru wagged his tail when Hinata came over and started patting him. Raven, Ino said as the Uchiha went in. He took off his mask, becoming Sasuke again. HN, he said. What's everyone's doing? His cold eyes surveyed the room, taking in the scene. Why do you all look so tired? What do you think? Shikamaru yawned. Geez, this is so troublesome. I'm going to take a shower. Sasuke went to an armchair and sat down on it and sighed. Training was hard for me too, he muttered. The Sharingan still takes a lot out of me. But not as much as before, any? Hinata asked. Sasuke shook his head. I'm off, he said, following Kiba up the stairs. Damn. Why is everyone going to sleep early? Ino asked. Hinata sat in front of the fire, Akamaru's head resting on her lap. Freakin' hell. You didn't have to throw it that hard, said a voice angrily outside the shinobi quarters. Raccoon and Fox appeared, the latter looking thoroughly pissed as he tore off his mask. When you train, you have to act as though you are going to kill your opponent, Gaara said, tossing his mask on an armchair. Surely Kakashi taught you that. What's going on now? Sakura asked. This, Naruto said, turning his back to her. The three girls could see a kunai protruding from right shoulder blade, just where the armor ended. The blood stains weren't clearly seen because of the black fabric. Gaara threw it at me really hard. Naruto, you are an ANBU now. Why the hell couldn't you dodge that one little kunai? Ino asked, jumping up to heal him. And even though you didn't dodge it, you still shouldn't be complaining about it, Hinata said. Naruto pouted. I thought you would be on my side, Hinata, he whined, sounding like a child. Whatever made you think that? Sakura asked, raising her eyebrow. Because Hinata's nice, Naruto said. Naruto, you're not a child anymore. Grow up, Sakura said wearily. Gaara surveyed the scene before him, and then decided he was too tired to be a part of it. Good night, Gaara said. His pale green eyes were decidedly exhausted. He went up to the dorms. Everyone's more tired than usual, Hinata said. Have they been overtraining? Most likely, Sakura said. I guess they're just really bored. Harry was in the common room that night with Ron and Hermione when he noticed Stag sitting in front of the fire. Evidently, it was his turn to watch Harry. The boy saw Stag writing a long letter nonstop, pausing every now and then to scan over what he had written, and then starting to write again. Harry was still feeling irritated and annoyed at the guards, and so tried to ignore Stag. However, near the end of the night, when most people had gone off to bed, Harry heard Stag mumbling. Hope she gets this, Stag muttered. Harry sighed, annoyed. Would you mind shutting up? Harry snapped. He decided that anyone who killed others were better off away from him. They probably didn't know the pain of having no parental love. And he sounds like an idiot. Stag glanced over at Harry. He heard from Fox about the encounter today, and knew that the scarred boy was pissed. But that didn't mean he was going to go all kind and soft-hearted towards a brat who hasn't even seen a person die in front of him yet. You know, Potter-san, Stag said. You're not the center of the universe, so don't tell me what to do. Harry, stop being stupid, Hermione whispered. Harry ignored her. Well, it's hard to concentrate when you're mumbling away in the background, Harry said. Perhaps he was looking for an excuse for an argument, he didn't know. All he did know was that he definitely did not want these people guarding him. They were too callous. Well then, my apologies, Almighty One, Stag said mockingly. I'm just writing a letter to my girlfriend. Guess I've got to get your permission for me to speak from now on, eh? You have a girlfriend? Ron asked, unable to stop himself. Yeah, is that so weird? Stag asked dryly. Even ninja can have relationships, you know. Our world isn't just made up of blood and death. Really? I never would have thought otherwise, Harry said, getting up and going to his dorms. Stag raised an eyebrow after him. Arrogant, annoying, weak little boy, he muttered, earning him heated glares from Ron and Hermione. Cat followed Harry swiftly as he made his way up to the Oli, a letter addressed to Sirius Black in his hand. She had watched him write it in the early morning, something about him imagining his scar hurting. The Oli was a circular stone room on the top of a tower, cold and drafty because of the absence of glass on the windows. The floor was covered in straw, owl droppings and bones of mice and voles. Hundreds and hundreds of owls nestled here and there on perches that right up to the roof. The owls shifted restlessly when they noticed Cat's presence, but went back to sleep. Cat watched Harry coax down his snowy white owl and tie the letter to her feet. Harry stared after his owl for a while after she took flight, and then sighed, going to back the Gryffindor common room. Cat slipped after him silently. In the Gryffindor common room, she found Fawkes waiting inside for her. Harry gave her captain a cold glance, and went back up to his dorm, obviously not wanting to stay in the same room as him. Fawkes, Cat said softly, going up to him. What are you doing here? Just checking in, Fawkes said, grinning brightly at her, and although Cat couldn't see it, the smile reached his eyes. Where did Pottersan go? He sent a letter to Blacksan about him imagining that his scar hurt during the holidays to stop Blacksan from returning to the country, Cat said. The ninja had intercepted and read all of the letters Harry had sent to his godfather. And I don't know how they do it, they just do. He did he? Fawkes said thoughtfully. That doesn't really concern us, though. The sky is quite pretty, Cat said after a moment's silence. The kunoichi was looking out the window of the Gryffindor common room towards a horizon that was shot with pink and gold. A gleaming sun sent rays of light streaming towards the castle and onto Cat's mask. I like Konoha's sky better, Fawkes said. He would never admit it, but he was a little homesick. You're homesick, Cat without hesitation. Fawkes blinked at her. How did you know? Fawkes asked in amazement. I was sure I hid it pretty well, Fawkes thought. Cat gave him a little shrug. I just do, Cat smiled. Cat may have been shy and quiet, but she had learned to read emotions pretty well now. She moved closer to him and put her hand on her captain's shoulder. Don't worry, we all are, Cat said softly. But hey, it's a mission. I know that, Fawkes said. Still, can't help it. But then again, this mission is pretty exciting, ain't? Yeah, it is, Cat agreed. Although you still haven't gotten used to the ghosts, have you? Be quiet. Swan, I want you to check on the third-year Hufflepuffs this morning, Fawkes told her. The ninja were in the Great Hall having breakfast, and Fawkes was giving them their watch-over-them classes for the day. Eagle, Dog and Raven, you'll be with Pottersan. Raccoon and Cat can go with the 7th-year Ravenclaws. Dragon and Slug will be with the 5th-year Slytherins. Cat, after the first 2 lessons, you go with the first-year Gryffindors. Dragon, after the first 3 lessons, you go and check on the 2nd-year Hufflepuffs. Got it? Hi, they chorused. Eagle and Raven had started a staring contest. Okay, maybe more like glaring. 2 prodigies weren't exactly meant to work together, especially Raven and Eagle. They both had pretty high opinions of themselves. Kami-sama, Fawkes growled. Would you guys stop that? HN. Act your age, Fawkes hissed. Stag coughed into his breakfast. Fawkes ignored him. Look who's talking, Eagle muttered. Fawkes's eyebrow twitched. Excuse me? Since when have you ever acted mature, Fawkes? Raven asked. I've acted mature, Fawkes insisted. Really? Yup. When? Sometime in the past? A snort. Right. Oh, shut up, team. Dobe. Team. Dobe. Team. Dobe. There's the bell, Raccoon said. Go to your assigned classes before I use my sand to dump you there. Swan grinned. Raccoon is more of a leader than you are, Fox, Swan teased. Hey, Fox protested. I'm a pretty good leader. For Cammie's sake, Fox, just go to your class. Slug snarled, losing her patience. Fox's body flickered out of the hall before the pinkette could punch him out of the castle. Dog had found himself in a very uncomfortable position. Literally. He was standing between Raven and Eagle. And they were both death glaring each other. And he was caught. In the middle of it. It was like having two holes being burned on either side of your head. Dog didn't like it. Not to mention the fact that they were late. Classes had already started, and so the corridors were empty. When do you think they'll stop? Dog whispered to Akamaru. The white canine whined, but Dog heard it to be, probably never. Great, Dog thought. I'm stuck between two hot heads, or maybe I should call them cool heads. They don't seem the type to get angry. Whatever, I feel like I'm in the middle of a roasting pit. Could you guys stop glaring at each other? Dog asked irritably. The Hyuga glanced at him, then at the Uchiha, and then looked away. Raven did the same. Thank Cammie, Dog sighed. But then another problem was presented. It was awkward. So extremely, almightily, annoyingly, awkwardly awkward. The silence between the three boys pressed upon Dog. The two prodigies may not have noticed it, but the dog Neen felt very uncomfortable. Dog was normally a very chatty person, but he could not bring himself to start a conversation with either of them. I'm gonna kill Fox for this, Dog thought. What the hell was he thinking? Putting Raven and Eagle together. The idiot. We're here, Dog said dully as they arrived at Harry's defense against the dark arts classroom. No, really? Raven said mockingly. I never would have guessed. Shut your mouth, Eagle said coldly. The noise is unbearable enough without you adding your annoying voice into it. Ouch, Dog sniggered. Pretty good wording there. But it was true, the noise inside the classroom was filled with students laughing and shrieking. Dog opened the door to find Dean Thomas hopping around the room singing the national anthem. The three shinobi sweat dropped. Moody-san? Dog asked curiously as they entered. All the desks were pushed to the side of the room, leaving a wide space in the middle. The Exor had his wand trained on the Gryffindor boy. I'm putting the Imperious Curse on them, Moody said, so they know what it feels like. I'm also hoping they can fight it off. The three guards nodded in understanding. Can we have a go at the end? Dog asked eagerly. I want to know what it feels like. Moody lifted the curse of Dean and gazed at the three ninja. Finally, he nodded. All right then, after I've done everyone, he growled. The shinobi then settled down on the tops of desks and watched the class do the strangest things. Lavender Brown imitated a squirrel. Neville Longbottom performed a series of astonishing gymnastics that he would certainly not have been capable of in his normal state. None of them seemed to be able to fight off the curse, and each of them only recovered when Moody had removed it. Finally, it was Harry's turn. The boy walked nervously to the center of the room and faced his teacher. Moody raised his wand and pointed it at Harry, and said Imperial. It was the most wonderful feeling. Harry felt a floating sensation as every thought and worry in his head was wiped gently away, leaving nothing but a vague, untraceable happiness. He stood there feeling immensely relaxed, only dimly aware of everyone watching him. And then he heard Moody's voice, echoing in some distant chamber of his empty brain, jump onto the desk, jump onto the desk. Harry bent his knees obediently, preparing to spring. Jump onto the desk. Why though? Another voice had awoken in the back of his brain. Stupid thing to do, really, said the voice. Jump onto the desk. No, I don't think I will, thanks, said the other voice, a little more firmly. No, I really don't want to. Jump. Now. The next thing Harry felt was considerable pain. He had both jumped and tried to prevent himself from jumping. The result was that he'd smashed headlong into the desk, knocking it over, and by the feeling in his legs, fractured both his kneecaps. "Now, that's more like it," growled Moody's voice, and suddenly Harry felt the empty, echoing feeling in his head disappear. He remembered exactly what was happening, and the pain in his knees seemed to double. "Go get Slug," Dog whispered to Akamaru. "Tell her Pottersons has, by the sound of it, fractured his kneecaps." Akamaru barked softly and sped out the door after opening it with his paw. After Moody had put Harry through the curse another 4 times until the boy could finally throw it off altogether, Slug had been waiting patiently for about 20 minutes. "Just going to heal him," she told Moody briskly. "Come here, Potter-san." Harry hobbled over and slumped down on a desk. Slug held out her palm over Harry's kneecaps and her hand glowed soft green. A tiny gasp was emitted from the class watching her. Harry felt his bones shift slightly under his skin, and felt a little queasy. After Slug had finished, however, his knee was as good as new. "Thanks," Harry shortly, testing his legs out. He still didn't like the guards, but thought that it would be too rude not to thank her. Slug didn't say anything, but she twisted on her heel and started to leave. "If you don't mind me asking, how did you do that?" Hermione said. Slug put a finger up to the mouth of her mask, making the universal sign of shh. "Trade secret," she grinned. "But you could call it medical jutsu." She held her right hand up, folding down all of her fingers apart from her pointer and middle finger, which she left sticking up, and a second later, vanished with a poof. "Wow," Ron murmured as they watched Moody perform the curse on the other members of their class. "She's as good as Madame Pomfrey." "Don't let her hear you say that," Harry muttered back. "All right, your turn," Moody grunted after the entire class had been through the Imperious Curse. "They're having a go?" Hermione asked, watching Dog leap up excitedly along with Raven and Eagle. Akamaru looked down curiously, his great white head cocked as he watched his master/friend. "Apparently," Harry shrugged. "Imperious," Moody growled, his wand trained at Dog. Dog stood absolutely still for a few seconds, and from what the class could see from his eyes, they were glazed, and then he seemed to recover. For Dog, the experience was equal to getting hit in the head, seeing stars in front of your eyes and then regaining yourself again. He shook his head a few times, and then frowned. Why did you take the curse off so soon?" Dog whined. Moody's eyes widened. "Ninja, what were they?" Dog threw off the curse with such ease. "Very good," Moody said. "The curse on still on you." "What?" Ron Whisper shouted. Dog's face fell under his mask. "Is that all?" Dog asked. Moody nodded. "My turn," Raven said. The ice block moved to the center of the room and Dog went to the side. "Imperious." "HN." Dog's sweat dropped. Of course the Uchiha would say that. Moody rose an eyebrow, took the curse off, and Eagle went for his turn. Moody's interest was mounting very high now. "Imperious." Eagle tilted his head, clearly saying, "Is that all?" "Interesting," Moody muttered. "Are they, like, immune to the Imperious curse or something?" Parvati Patil whispered to Lavender Brown. "That can't be possible," Hermione murmured to Harry and Ron. "No wizard can throw off the curse with that much ease." "But they aren't wizards," Harry muttered, being reminded forcefully that they were ninja. Ninja who killed and tortured without batting an eyelid. The next class was Transfiguration with Professor McGonagall. She had given the class a lecture on their and why the amount of homework she had set them was so high. "You are now entering a most important phase of your magical education," she told them, her eyes glinting dangerously behind her square spectacles. "Your ordinary wizarding levels are drawing closer." "We don't take till 5th year," said Dean Thomas indignantly. "Maybe not, Thomas, but believe me, you need all the preparation you can get. Miss Granger remains the only person in this class who has managed to turn a hedgehog into a satisfactory pincushion. I might remind you that your pincushion, Thomas, still curls up in fright if anyone approaches it with a pin." "Seems like they have to start working hard," Dog muttered. "Reminds me of the academy," Eagle said. "Except we had to practice jutsu and learn the rules of the shinobi." "The good old days," Raven said. Dog couldn't work out whether he meant it sarcastically or not. "Shit," Dog whispered, staring up at the trapdoor. "I can't go up there." "And why not?" Eagle asked, gazing steadily at him. Last time I went up there, I fainted because of the old hag's perfume, Dog retorted. The Gryffindors milled around behind them. Just get the hell in, Raven said irritably, and before Dog could protest, he was thrown up the door and into the heavily scented air of the divination room. Akamira whined below him, but settled down behind the ladder, content to wait there until the end of class. You'll live, Eagle said as Dog put his hand under his mask and clapped it over his nose. Like hell I will, Dog hissed. The ninja went to the table beside the window, and Dog opened it, sticking his face outside. Harry and Ron were deeply amused when Professor Trelawney told them that they had received top marks for their homework, and she read out large portions of their predictions, commending them for their unflinching acceptance of the horrors in store for them. But they were less amused when she asked them to predict their futures for the next month. Isn't it just a load of crap? Dog asked Raven and Eagle during class while Professor Trelawney went on about something. Yeah, Eagle murmured. But I don't think she knows that. Dog's lips twitched in amusement, but then he went back to his window, needing fresh air again. Has Fox been to History of Magic lessons? Raven asked, speaking in English as they sat at the back of the classroom, watching Professor Binns drone on and on and on and on and on about goblin rebellions in the 18th century. Nah, he always has to call Slug in for him. Still scared of ghosts, Eagle said. Sounds just like him, Dog commented. He gazed around the room, bored and wanting something to do. Harry and Ron were playing hangman, completely ignoring their ghost teacher, while Hermione threw them disapproving looks. In potions, Professor Snape had the witches and wizards researching antidotes. The ninja watched with great amusement when Snape had threatened the students that he would be testing if their antidotes worked before Christmas. Professor Flitwick, the charms teacher, had the students reading 3 extra books in preparation for their lesson on summoning charms. They have heaps of stuff to do, Dog said. Eagle and Raven said nothing, but Dog knew that they agreed. In Care of Magical Creatures, Raven, Eagle, and Dog met the blast-ended squirts for the first time. Oh joy. Ugh, Dog said, wrinkling his nose. Are these the things that Dragon was complaining about a while ago? They smell like dead fish. Most likely, Eagle said, peering down at them. Although the ones that Dragon described seemed a lot smaller. That's because they've been growing really fast, Lavender Brown told them, overhearing their conversation. Hagrid, of course, was delighted with that fact. He even suggested that the students should come down on alternate evenings to observe the squirts and make notes on their extraordinary behavior. I will not, said Draco Malfoy flatly, when Hagrid had proposed this with the air of Father Christmas pulling an extra-large toy out of his sack. I see enough of these foul things during lessons, thanks. Hagrid's smile faded from his face. You'll do what you're told, he growled, or I'll be taking a leaf out of Professor Moody's book. I hear ya made a good ferret, Malfoy. The Gryffindors roared with laughter. Malfoy flushed with anger, but apparently the memory of Moody's punishment was still sufficiently painful to stop him retorting. Harry, Ron and Hermione returned to the castle at the end of the lesson in high spirits with the guards trailing behind. Seeing Hagrid put down Malfoy was particularly satisfying, especially because Malfoy had done his very best to get Hagrid sacked the previous year. When they arrived at the entrance hall, they found themselves unable to proceed owing to the large crowd of students congregated here, all milling around a large sign which had been erected at the foot of the marble staircase. Ron, the tallest of the 3, stood on tiptoe to see over the heads in front of them and read the sign aloud to the other 2. Triwizard Tournament. The delegations from Beauxbatons and Durmstrang will be arriving at 6 o'clock on Friday 30th of October. Lesson will end half an hour early. Students will return their bags and books to their dormitories and assemble in front of the castle to greet our guests before the welcoming feast. Wow, only 1 week away, Dog said, moving off into the hall and avoiding the mass of people by walking on the ceiling. The appearance of the sign in the entrance hall had a marked effect upon the inhabitants of the castle. During the following weeks, there seemed to be only one topic of conversation, no matter where Harry went: the Triwizard Tournament. Rumors were flying from student to student like highly contagious germs. Who was going to try for Hogwarts champions, what the tournament would involve, how the students from Beauxbatons and Durmstrang differed from themselves. Even the guards seemed excited. They had never seen a wizarding tournament yet, and so were very curious to see what it would hold. Harry noticed, too, that the castle seemed to be undergoing an extra thorough cleaning. Several grimy portraits had been scrubbed, much to the displeasure of their subjects, who sat huddled in their frames muttering darkly and wincing as they felt their raw pink faces. The suits of armor were suddenly gleaming and moving without squeaking, and Argus Filch, the caretaker, was behaving so ferociously to any student who forgot to wipe their shoes that he terrified a pair of first-year girls into hysterics. Other members of staff seemed oddly tense too. Longbottom, kindly do not reveal that you can't even perform a simple switching spell in front of anyone from Durmstrang. Professor McGonagall barked at the end of one lesson, during which Neville had accidentally transplanted his own ears onto a cactus. Nice, Dragon said appreciatively when the ninja went down to breakfast on the 30th of October. They had discovered that the Great Hall had been decorated overnight. Enormous silk banners hung from the walls, each of them representing a Hogwarts house, red with a gold lion for Gryffindor, blue with a bronze eagle for Ravenclaw, yellow with a black badger for Hufflepuff, and green with a silver serpent for Slytherin. For the ninja, there was a white banner with the symbol of the leaf and sand. Behind the teacher's table, the largest banner of all bore the Hogwarts coat of arms: lion, eagle, badger and snake united around a large letter H. We saw them decorating it last night while Raccoon and I were doing our rounds, Stag said, glancing at the decorations and shoving his hands into his pockets. Troublesome. Stag hasn't said that word for ages, Fox whispered. Good morning, guards, Dumbledore said, striding towards them as they sat down on their table. Oh hey, Dumbledore-san, Fox said. What can we do for you? I'm just here to explain the Triwizard Tournament, Dumbledore said. He conjured up a chair and sat facing the ninja, therefore turning his entire back to the school. Is everybody here? Barked Fox, looking around. Where the hell is Raccoon? Sorry, Raccoon said, poof ing next to him. I got distracted. Right, now that everyone is here, let me begin, Dumbledore said. First, I am going to tell you what the first task consists of. Please do not reveal any of this to the students, it is against the rules. In the first task, they will be going against a dragon, and they need to get the golden egg. I shall tell you about the second and third tasks when it comes. The heads of the participating schools will be the judges, including me, and also Bartemius Crouch and Ludo Bagman. For the first task, the champions will be awarded points out of 10 for how well they do. Now, for the jobs that you will be doing. I want all of you guarding each task in case things get out of hand. For the dragons, there will be a handful of dragon tamers, but we need you there just in case. I will explain your duties for the second and third task when the time comes, but for now, you must go because classes have started, Dumbledore finished with a smile. Thanks, Dumbledore-san, Fox said. He turned to the ninja. Everyone understand that? After receiving confirmations, Fox instructed Stag to go and follow Harry's class. The rest will go with the class I assign you for lessons 1, 3 and 4. The times between and after that you're free, Fox said and then began giving each guard a class to look after for the day. Dragon, are you okay? Eagle asked calmly as he went over to the girl. Are you kidding? Does it look like I'm okay? Dragon snarled as she tried to stand on her twisted ankle. Ow. Fool, Eagle sighed. Get onto my back and we'll go find Slug. Dragon glared at him, clearly not wanting to do what he said, but after a second, realized that she had no choice. This is so embarrassing, she muttered and scrambled onto his back. There's no one here to see, Eagle pointed out as they made their way back to the castle. They had been training in the Quidditch pitch, and after Dragon had leapt through the air, she tried to dodge Eagle's gentle fist and ended up landing awkwardly on the ground. Both had finished their guarding duties for the day. This is your fault, you know, Dragon said playfully. If you hadn't tried to gentle fist me, I wouldn't have been injured. And if you hadn't left yourself vulnerable in the air, this wouldn't have happened, Eagle retorted. Stupid Niji, always a smartass with words, Dragon thought. They made their way up to the hospital wing, and found Slug chatting away with Madame Pomfrey. Slug, Eagle called out. The Pinkette turned and raised an eyebrow when she saw Dragon exuding a gloomy aura and Eagle trying not to accidentally on purpose drop his comrade. Dragon was being an idiot and hurt herself, Eagle explained, lowering her on a bed. Hey, let me remind you that it was your gentle fist that caused me to land on the ground that way, Dragon said as Slug healed her ankle, much to the interest of Madame Pomfrey. We've already had this discussion, Dragon, Eagle said. The girl gave a TSK. All done, Slug said. Now could you two lovebirds get out of the hospital wing? Eagle and Dragon jumped, and they both felt their faces heat up. Excuse me? Dragon spluttered. Lovebirds? Him? As if. Whatever, just go, Slug said, grinning broadly, thankful that her mask covered that fact. She knew Eagle and Dragon would kill her later. Eagle and Dragon left the hospital wing, and after Slug made sure they were gone, she squealed with delight and giggled. She loved teasing the two, knowing that they both liked each other but were too proud to admit the fact. Madame Pomfrey looked at her strangely. 10-10, Niji said after watching the girl pace the ninja common room for the 20th time. The kunoichi stopped in her tracks and glared at him. What? Stop walking around like that. Don't tell me what to do, Hyuga-niji. Why are you so restless? 'Cause I am. She started pacing again. Tenten. What? You're really beautiful. Thanks. Why did you say that? Because it's true. Right. Tenten studied the Hyuga's face, and found that he was staring at her without a trace of embarrassment on his face. Did you only say that to make me stop pacing? No. Niji's lips twitched into a tiny smile. Tenten. HM? I love you. HM, that doesn't sound like the Hyuga-niji I know. Has Ino possessed you or something? Tenten, I'm serious. I know, Tenten grinned. And I love you too. Stag had noticed that there was a pleasant feeling of anticipation in the air that day. None of the students were very attentive in lessons, being much more interested in the arrival that evening of the people from Bosbatons and Durmstrang. When the bell rang early, Stag followed Harry, Ron and Hermione up to the Gryffindor Tower, and waited patiently for them to drop their books and bags off and pull on their cloaks, and then tailed them when they rushed back downstairs into the entrance hall. Why are they in such a rush? Stag thought. Haven't they met students from other schools yet? To Stag, the arrival of Bosbatons and Durmstrang was the same as shinobi from Suna coming to visit. The heads of houses were ordering their students into lines. Hey, Stag said once he spotted the ninja walking on the walls to avoid the confusion below them. Yo, Dog grinned. The students are quite enthusiastic. He nodded to the Hogwarts students milling around in the entrance hall. I have to admit, I'm quite excited as well, Raccoon said, his voice flat. You don't sound like you're excited, Swan said. But I am, Raccoon told her. His sand was slithering around as well, an indication of his mood. Put your sand back into your gourd, Fox said irritably. The guards followed the students and teachers as they filed down the front steps and lined up in front of the castle. It was a cold, clear evening. Dusk was falling and a pale transparent-looking moon was already shining over the forbidden forest. The ninja, who had taken refuge in the trees of the forest, spotted Harry standing between Ron and Hermione in the fourth row from the front. Cat scanned the darkening ground closely, but nothing was moving. Everything was still, silent, and quiet. They're coming, Eagle murmured. Akamaru sniffed the air and wagged his tail, confirming what Eagle had said. Aha! Unless I am very much mistaken, the delegation from Bosbatons approaches. Dumbledore called out. It's a flying carriage, with 12 winged horses, Cat said slowly, except these are huge. The shinobi looked to where Cat was pointing and saw, with their excellent eyesight, exactly what Cat had described. Cat heard the students shouting out all kinds of strange things while they tried to guess what it was, and she tried not to laugh. A gigantic black shape was hurtling through the skies towards the castle, skimming over the treetops of the forbidden forest, and showering the shinobi with leaves. As the lights from the castle hit it, they saw a huge, powder-blue, horse-drawn carriage, the size of a large house, soaring through the air, pulled by a dozen winged horses, all palominos, and each the size of an elephant. Kami-sama! Cat thought. These are huge. The front 3 rows of students drew backwards as the carriage hurtled ever lower, coming in to land at a tremendous speed. Then, with an almighty crash, the horses' hooves, larger than dinner plates, hit the ground. A second later, the carriage landed too, bounding upon its vast wheels, while the golden horse tossed their enormous heads and rolled large, fiery red eyes. The shinobi left the cover of the trees and darted to where the students were, making a girl shriek as they suddenly appeared next to her. They were just in time to see a coat of arms, 2 golden wands, each emitting 3 stars, before it opened. A boy in pale blue robes jumped down from the carriage, bent forwards, fumbled for a moment with something on the carriage floor and unfolded a set of golden steps. He sprang back respectfully. Then, the ninja saw a shiny, high-heeled black shoe emerging from the inside of the carriage, a shoe the size of the Hokage's desk, followed, almost immediately, by the largest woman they had ever seen in their lives. The size of the carriage, and of the horses, was immediately explained. A few people gasped, the shinobi did not, but still, they were shocked, although they didn't show it. She's the size of Hagrid-san, Slug whispered. Cat was staring at her too, stunned at her size. As she stepped into the light flooding from the entrance hall, she was revealed to have a handsome, olive-skinned face, large, black, liquid-looking eyes and a rather beaky nose. Her hair was drawn back in a shiny knob at the base of her neck. She was dressed from head to foot in black satin, and many magnificent opals gleamed at her throat and on her thick fingers. Dumbledore started to clap. The students, following his lead, broke into applause too, many of them standing on tiptoe, the better to look at this woman. The ninja did not clap, and they looked on stonily. It wasn't in their nature to applaud people, only if they did something worth clapping for. The woman's face relaxed into a gracious smile, and she walked forwards towards Dumbledore, extending a glittering hand. Dumbledore, though tall himself, had barely to bend to kiss it. "My dear Madame Maxime," he said. "Welcome to Hogwarts." "Dumbledore," said Madame Maxime, in a deep voice. "I hope I find you well?" "On excellent form, I thank you," said Dumbledore. "My pupils," said Madame Maxime, waving one of her enormous hands carelessly behind her. Cat had noticed a dozen or so boys and girls, all, by the look of them, in their late teens, had emerged from the carriage and were now standing behind Madame Maxime. They were shivering, which was unsurprising, given that their robes seemed to be made of fine silk, and none of them were wearing cloaks. A few of them had wrapped scarves and shawls around their heads. From what the shinobi could see of their faces, they were standing in Madame Maxime's enormous shadow. They were staring up at Hogwarts with apprehensive looks on their faces. "Has Karkaroff arrived yet?" Madame Maxime asked. "He should be here any moment," said Dumbledore. "Would you like to wait here and greet him, or would you prefer to step inside and warm up a trifle?" "Warm up, I think," said Madame Maxime. "But Z horses." "Can you hear something?" Dog asked Fox. The sound was minute, and it was likely that the witches and wizards, with their ordinary ears, had not noticed it yet, but to the ninja's superb hearing, it was like an annoying, buzzing fly. Cat shook her head and tried to locate the sound. "Yeah," Fox nodded. "It seems to be coming from the lake, but really, really deeply underwater. And does that make sense?" Madame Maxime and her students had passed up the stone steps, and most of the Hogwarts people were staring hopefully at the sky. "Dumbledore-san, there's something coming from the lake," Fox murmured into the headmaster's ear. Dumbledore nodded. "Durmstrang," he said. Now, everyone could hear the eerie, loud noise that was drifting towards them in the darkness. It was a muffled, rumbling and sucking sound, as though an immense vacuum cleaner was moving along a riverbed. "The lake!" yelled Lee Jordan, pointing down to it. "Look at the lake!" From their position at the top of the lawns overlooking the grounds, they had a clear view of the smooth black surface of the water, except that the surface was suddenly not smooth at all. Some disturbance was taking place deep in the center. Great bubbles were forming on the surface, waves were now washing over the muddy banks, and then, out in the middle of the lake, a whirlpool appeared, as if a giant plug had just been pulled out of the lake's floor. What seemed to be a long, black pole began to rise slowly out of the heart of the whirlpool, and then the rigging. Slowly, magnificently, the ship rose out of the water, gleaming in the moonlight. It had a strangely skeletal look about it, as though it was a resurrected wreck, and the dim, misty lights shimmering at its portholes looked like ghostly eyes. Finally, with a great sloshing noise, the ship emerged entirely, bobbing on the turbulent water, and began to glide